I've appreciated the way that the guys have worked this year. I thought they worked really hard last year, too. And I love coming to work every day. I think there's the vibe that way, too. I mean, Clint's been a fantastic partner to myself and to the entire building so far. I feel like, year two, we've got to come together more. I mean, the great teams and organizations, there's a very much of a team culture, and it takes time to establish that. And that's why continuity and consistency is so important in our space.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
And here we go, Raider Nation. We come into the sounds of GM John Spytek talking about year two, talking about consistency and continuity. That was going back to the Raiders Media Day. That was back on June 8th. You remember that? That was a big to-do over at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, like the first day of school. Really a big deal. The Raiders did a hell of a job, and obviously anytime the GM John Spytek speaks, everyone's listening because he's got a lot of really good things to say. And, he's been rolling out the game plan ever since the season got wrapped up in 2025. And as far as I'm concerned, everything has gone the way it's supposed to go, right? Has there been a couple bumps in the road? Sure. But have the Raiders been able to overcome it? Absolutely. And it just really feels like that John Spytek and company have had a, as a matter of fact, plan, and they were going to stick to it. They've done that, and, well, now the results are what they are right now as we're just a few weeks out from the start of Raiders training camp. And it's going to get real, and it is getting real when you start getting emails about season credentials. It really starts getting real when you start getting emails about training camp schedules. It starts getting real when you start getting different, what's your travel going to look like for this game or this game? So all of a sudden you realize not too far in the future, we're going to be going choom, 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 million miles an hour just on the hustle. And we sign up for it. We're excited for it. It's what we do. It's our lifestyle. It's not a job. I say it all the time. It's a lifestyle. If it's your job, you're in the wrong business. You got to create this as a lifestyle. And, man, I'm telling you, our lifestyle is about to change sooner rather than later and change for the good. And, of course, Raider Nation, that's going to benefit you as well. As games will be here sooner rather than later. I mean, man, reality really hit yesterday for me, Ari, when we were talking to Travis Wingfield, who covers the Miami Dolphins, does a great job there at MiamiDolphins.com, and we were just doing a little strength, weakness, and X factor with them on the show yesterday. And I realized as I was looking up at the schedule, 2 months from yesterday will be the first game at Allegiant Stadium. Not a preseason game. Not a preseason game, but the first regular season game. We'll be there at the Torch. JT the Brick and Eric Allen will be doing the pregame show. I'll be standing there on Coors Light Landing. Kirk Morrison, Jason Horowitz, Paul Gutierrez will all be walking by. Lincoln Kennedy will be walking by. We'll be right back in the same spot that we were to wrap up the 2025 season. We'll be right there in 2 months from yesterday.
That is awesome, by the way.
Think about how quickly things are going to happen in the next 2 months.
Yeah, right. True, yeah, because this is it. This is where everything just goes crazy, and next thing you blink, like you always say, you blink, and here it is. So
I'm trying to tell you, man, I was talking to my dad on Saturday. It was hilarious, and he was talking about, just how the season was coming up and how quickly everything was moving, and good thing you got your vacation in because training camp's going to come up. And I said, yeah, these days just fly by. And he said, well, let me tell you something, son. Let me bring you into something that you might not know. I said, what? He said, as you get older, it ain't going to slow down. None.
Great advice.
I was like, huh? He's like, I can tell you, I don't have a job, right? Because he's retired. He's living his best life. He said, I ain't got no job, but I feel like it was yesterday I was getting dressed for church. Guess what? Tomorrow, I'm going to be getting dressed for church. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's so funny when you put it into perspective like that. Like just the simple things, right? And I talk to my dad every time I leave the barbershop on Saturdays. And so it's so funny because as he said that, in my mind I was thinking, yeah, you're right. And I'm going to be headed back to the barbershop in a week, right? It ain't going to be no time. And all of a sudden I'll be walking up into the barbershop again and setting the TV up so we can watch something, right? Because those guys always have something on a little sideways. I always have to get them right. I walk in and they look at me and I look at them like, what are we watching? What are we watching on TV here, fellas? What are we doing? We ain't doing it right. So I always have to make sure to get them right. But, yeah, man, it just goes by so fast.
Man, I'd thrown this sound in even tonight, or today I should say. It's from June 8th. And
right.
I don't know. I'm actually kind of going the opposite where I'm like, it feels like it was a really long time ago. It was, a month ago. So it's going
It wasn't, Ari, very long ago that we were going through our ultimate mock draft.
Right.
And talking about what every team in the league was going to do.
Yep.
Right now, we're many moons. Now we're having arguments about when the number one overall pick's going to play. Right? Not who the number one overall pick's going to be, not what the Raiders are going to do with the number one overall pick, but hell, when is he going to get on the field? and what makes the most sense. Like, I mean, that's
great.
It just goes by, boom, just like that. So,
Yep.
don't hesitate to do what you got to get done because, man, before you know it, that time will expire. Be like milk, right? It'll be expired, and you know it ain't no good when the milk is expired. So we got a big show lined up for you today, as we always do. Unnecessary Roughness here, Raider Nation Radio 920. I talked about the countdown to training camp and the strengths, the weakness, and the X factors. We'll continue with that today as we talk to Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, to talk about the Saints. We'll do this, and we'll preview all these teams that aren't in the Raiders division, that aren't in the AFC West. So all these teams that are on the schedule, not named the Broncos, not named the Chargers, and not named the Chiefs. We'll worry about those guys during training camp. We can worry about them, but just want to get a little bit of an early taste test on what to expect from these teams outside the division, the teams that the Raiders don't see all the time. So we just do a little, 3 questions: strength, weakness, X factor. Of course, we'll ask a couple other ones, but those are the main features right there when we do that. So Ross Jackson, he's our first guest. He'll actually start us off at 3 o'clock talking about the Saints and what to expect. At 3:30, the General joins the show. John McClain, always great to talk to John McClain. All things NFL. You never know where that conversation is going to go. I did see some sad news out of Houston, and I saw him tweeting about it that one of the McNairs, one of the founding ladies of the McNairs, of the McNair family, she passed away, I believe, age 89. And so I saw John tweeting about her. So we'll get all the information and get, the thoughts of John when he joins us on that subject, and also just everything else NFL related, as we're not too far out from the start of training camp. So John McClain will join us coming up at 3:30. Then our good friend Sam Gordon from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, he'll join us at 4 o'clock. We'll talk all things Raiders. Plus, he's been Johnny on the spot when it comes to Summer League. He covers the boxing game, the fighting game like a glove as well. So we'll talk to him about the situation that was, and I'll just call it a situation that was, the Conor McGregor fight, or the Conor McGregor show up, no show up on Saturday there at T-Mobile Arena, where a lot of people were excited and fired up about Conor McGregor, the return of McGregor after 5 years. I know we talked about him on this show, and then, boom, it was over before it ever got started. So Sam Gordon, he covered a whole lot of different subjects, and he'll do that coming up at 4 o'clock. Those are the guests that we have lined up on the show. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints at 3, John McClain at 3:30, and Sam Gordon from the RJ, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, at 4 o'clock. Of course, we've got winning on the way. It is the Summer of Fun, brought to you by Terribles. We got another trip that we're sending you on. And one thing that I don't think is being talked about enough is that, yes, we're sending you on a trip. It's the Summer of Fun. The trip changes every week. But if you don't want to take the trip, you don't have to. I have not heard this talked about enough. You can also take home $3,000, which is really a big deal, right? It's something that shouldn't be glossed over. You could take the trip, but you also could take the cash. The cash is $3,000, so it's your option. So it really makes a lot of sense. You don't have to go nowhere and still benefit, right? You can. All you have to do is win. If you win, you got the choice. You take the trip or you take the cash. So we got the next trip lined up. It's the Mississippi River boat experience that we're sending them to. But, Ari, what is the word for today?
Yeah, you just heard it. It is river, R-I-V-E-R, river. Boom.
There it is.
Text that in to 702-365-9200, just as I said it, R-I-V-E-R.
Man, if they can't get River right, I don't know what's going on.
You know?
Right? I mean, look, if you can't get River right, you might not deserve to win this competition.
It is, in fact, the Mississippi River Cruise. So
there you go. And look, and I'm trying to make sure we get as many winners as possible from this show, this station. We haven't got any yet. Any. I believe we had one on our sister station, Comp, came off of Sylvia's show, which not a surprise to me, but it puts us behind the 8 ball. She has a 1-0 lead on us, and we can't be losing in this competition of we've got the most winners on the show and on the station. So, Raider Nation, I'm going to need you to do your job. I'm going to need you to text River right now to 702-365-9200. Get in to win. You take the trip. You take the cash. It's your choice. I don't care what you take. I just want you to win. I want to be able to be the guy to give you the call and say, hey, you are a winner, chicken dinner. Shout out to my old guy, R.I.P. to Butch Henry back in the day in Central Texas. He used to do Butch's trivia every single day, Ari, and he was an old dude. Like, he knew where the bodies were buried, right? He's one of those cats, right? Everyone has that guy in their family where it's like the old dude that, just he knows everything. And he doesn't get too excited about any of it, but at the same time, when he speaks, you have to listen. That was Butch Henry. Oh, Coach. That's what they used to call him. Coach. Nice. All right, and so every time he did his Butch's trivia, at the end of it, he would say, that's a winner, chicken dinner. He was so –
that's good.
So excited by that. So shout out to my guy, old Butch Henry. But, yeah, there you go. I want to be able to call someone and tell them that they're a winner chicken dinner. So there you go. Show lined up for you. Big show. Ross Jackson, John McClain, Sam Gordon, and you. And, of course, we got to, hear from our guy, E-Rob. Yesterday was important. The rest of the week's going to be important. But today is as well. And that's why?
Because every day matters. The older you get, the more you start appreciating day in and day out. Because you know I can't get that time back. I'm in the business of saying, not if I would have did this or if I would have did that. I'm in the business of now.
I'm in the business of now as well. So right now, let's go ahead and jump into the opening drive.
The opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920 AM is brought to you by Paul Padala. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
Off top, got a text from Just Win Will. Always appreciate when he chimes in. Apparently, he's not at jury duty today, so that's a plus. But he said there's going to be some ticked-off naysayers in Paris tonight. LOL, have a great show, fellas. And that's because France lost to Spain. And, it's so funny. I just did a radio hit on Freddie and Harry, I should say, on ESPN Radio. And they were asking me about the World Cup and what I thought that, seeing Spain, the way that they were dominating against France. And I said, look, what do we say in sports all the time? Defense wins championships. The offense is what everyone gets excited about and fired up about. And we know that for France, Mbappe is one of the best in the world to do it. But Spain is so stinking good defensively. And then all of a sudden you put them up 2-0. Then all of a sudden it's a wrap. They literally, as a country, have only given up one goal in this whole World Cup. One. And that was just in their last game that they played. One goal. So if you live by the rules that defense wins championships, it should not surprise you at all that Spain was able to blank France and advance on. And so, big ups to Spain. And Just Win Will, you are correct. There is going to be some angry folks there representing because France is going home. So, the World Cup has been exciting and fun. And as I've been saying, you can soak it in at your own speed and your own way. You don't have to be a soccer super aficionado to know every single thing, but you can still enjoy it, and that's what I've been doing. I will never claim to be some big soccer head, but I have enjoyed what I've seen from the World Cup. Now, I want to get into the Raiders conversation and bring a topic to the table as we do each and every day, and it's so funny that the topic actually generated yesterday when Ari, who does a fantastic job behind the scenes on the Wheels of Steel, putting different intros and rejoiners together and sound bites that we could build a little bit of a conversation off of, and he brought in a little bit of sound from Marcus Allen when he was on NFL Network. And basically, when it's all said and done, they were asking him about the direction that the team is going under new head coach Clint Kubiak.
Well, I think the first thing is stability. That's what's really important. So obviously, we'd like to get off to a great start. I think we did that in the draft, and I think at this point, it's just building momentum. I think he's the perfect guy for the job. He relates well. There's an expectation there. He wants everybody to buy in. He wants everybody to be committed. And I think, again, you hate to say this, success would be a coach there for more than 1 or 2 years. So, but I think Clint's going to do an outstanding job. And I think, via the draft and obviously, free agency, we're going to start bringing, some really good pieces and really make this a great team, not just 1 or 2 individuals, but really a great team. So it's going to take a little time, but I think the Raiders are headed in the right direction.
So that's the Hall of Famer, Marcus Allen. When a Hall of Famer speaks, we listen, right? Especially when it's someone that is Marcus Allen and carries the weight that he carries with an organization like he does. And it's so funny, and I remember asking Kirk Morrison the question because that intro that Ari played, just a snippet of it, was leading into Kirk. So I remember asking him on yesterday, and you'll actually hear his response coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Well, yes, it feels good. We've said that a lot this offseason. The hires that John Spytek has made, the hires that Clint Kubiak has made, the free agents that the Raiders have brought in, the draft picks that the Raiders have brought in, it all feels good. It all looks good. It seems like this has been a very, beneficial offseason. It's been a very rewarding offseason. It's been a very quiet offseason, and even when it wasn't quiet, when it was a little bit noisy, when it surrounded Max Crosby, even that quieted down after, okay, cooler heads prevailed. Oh, you're not going to trade for him after all? Okay, fine. We'll take him back. That's a hell of a player. to add back to the roster. It just seems like nothing has ever been, oh my gosh, what do we do now? Oh my gosh, we got to panic. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to overcome this. It seems like, and this is just me speaking, John Spytek is operating like he's been doing this for years. That's what it feels like to me. When I look at the whole body of work when it comes to the offseason, it feels like the GM who's pressing all the buttons has been doing it for years. And I know Tom Brady's easily going to get a lot of the credit, right? Because that's what everyone says every time I do a radio hit anywhere. Well, Q, what have you thought about what Tom Brady's done this offseason? I was like, well, I mean, I know he gives input, but from my point of view, John Spytek's the guy that's pushing all the right buttons. But everyone wants to immediately go to Tom Brady because, well, he's so stinking good at everything he's done, right? And that's fine. Hey, he I guess he's earned that. But I know building a team, it takes more than just a Hall of Fame, all-time great player. If that was the case, Michael Jordan would have been fantastic at everything he's done post his career. And team building, building a roster with a basketball team ownership was not it. I'll be the guy in the barbershop that argues all day, every day that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. But off the court, ownership, all right, I'm out on that conversation, right? Because it just didn't go well because, well, look, he's the greatest to ever do it in my mind. Again, I know that that's a debatable conversation. That's fine. I have no problem with that. That's never going to end. But it doesn't mean that just because you're the greatest to ever do it, it means you're going to be great at building a team, putting together a roster, hiring a coaching staff, ownership. It's just different. It's different for everybody. And Tom Brady might end up being one of the greatest owners of all time, for all I know. But he's going to have to build up that equity. But what I do know is the guy that's in the building every single day, John Spytek as a GM, has been pressing the right buttons from my point of view. And looks like they put this team in the best position moving forward. Now, with all that being said, I know there was a lot of people that felt great, including myself, about the direction this team was going with Antonio Pierce. I know I was able to be convinced about the direction that it was going to go with Pete Carroll, because I'll tell you, when the name Vinny Bonsignore threw the name at me, I'll just be fully transparent. He threw the name at me well before he ever got hired. What do you think about Pete Carroll? I don't know. That's all right. And then after a little while, I think we talked to John McClain, matter of fact, here on the show, and he said, hey, man, Pete Carroll's got the skins on the wall. And so after talking to people that are smarter than me, I was like, okay, I'm in. This could be a really good hire, and they could do things the right way. Then they bring in Chip Kelly, and I thought, oh man, Pete Carroll's getting creative and kind of not a Pete Carroll hire that I would expect. But okay, now they're gonna get they're gonna kind of reinvent themselves. Well, little did I know that they were reinventing themselves by tying a rope around each other and then running in completely different directions. And we all know what that means, and we all know how far that's going to get you. It's going to get you nowhere. So as I asked Kirk Morrison this yesterday, I asked you the same thing, Raider Nation, at 702-365-9200. Would love to hear your thoughts. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than other years that we felt that this team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you the confidence that things are going to be different? And, it's so funny because I say it all the time. These conversations come up so organically. I can't tell you how many people I talk to all the time. Whether it's someone hitting me on Twitter, someone seeing me in the streets, I'm out and about somewhere, whatever, and it's like, man, it's really good offseason, Q. What do you think about the Raiders? And I don't try to get too fired up because I don't want to put extra sauce on it. You know what I mean? I don't want to get someone really fired up like, well, Q's around the team all the time, and he said there's no doubt they're going in the right direction. Like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that gives the false hope and the false narrative. So I always try to downplay it. Well, it seems good. I'm still trying to take the wait and see approach from, when we get out there and we actually get to see. But from what I've seen so far, from what I've heard so far, it looks like everything is checking the right boxes. And that's where I'm at. But it does seem like things are definitely trending correctly for this team. It does, to me, feel like that this could be the beginning of something where, as you heard Marcus Allen say, success would be a head coach being with the team multiple years. To me, super success would be a head coach getting a contract extension, getting a second contract, right? And I know Clint Kubiak just got into his first contract, but, it was the last time that the Raiders had a coach that had to get a second contract. They haven't, right? Jack Del Rio was the last guy, and obviously Gruden got the long contract. We know how that goes. We can go through that song and dance anytime we want to. But it's been a rotating door so much. So I can see this being the beginning of some really long-term success for John Spytek, for Clint Kubiak. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza is the quarterback. I do believe he's going to be the right guy for the job whenever he gets into the action. I know that's heavily debated. That was debated again this morning on the morning tailgate. That's the never-ending conversation, right? That may go down in the history of that might be like LeBron and Jordan versus Jordan part 2, right? Depending on how long it takes to get him into the game, right? It might be one of those long drug-out type conversations. That feels like one that you can have every single day. We're not planning on doing that every single day, but it feels like it could be a conversation that's had every day just because it's like, what makes most sense, what benefits him, what benefits the team the most moving forward. And, there's always so much excitement and energy and so many thoughts based around that subject. So I understand why it's an ongoing conversation, but we like to switch things up and have a lot of different conversations as well here on Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920. So I throw it out there to you at 702-365-9200. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than the other years that we felt that this team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give us confidence? We'll hear Kirk Morrison's thoughts coming up in about 10 minutes or so. He had a really good response to that question when I asked him yesterday, and that's why we always have him on the show. And so I know people like Just Win Will, who had jury duty and wasn't able to listen to Captain Kirk on yesterday, he'll like to and appreciate hearing the response from that answer on from Kirk Morrison, which I thought was fantastic from a guy who's been inside the walls. Right, a guy that's played for the organization, going back to the Oakland Raiders. So, that perspective I always like to take with a little bit more, not sense of urgency, but I put more stock into it when it's someone that's been there, done that, and seen how the sausage is made and see how it's all put together, and then he gives his perspective on why this feels different. But to me, what just makes this feel different, it just seems like, and I know we talked about this as the season got wrapped up, that we just wanted to see the plan. How many years have we talked on this show about the plan? And I don't know what the plan is, and I can't see it. But I can still go back to Josh McDaniels when he was the head coach. And I know somewhere, Mike just rolled his eyes like, oh, no, don't remind me of that. Don't bring up that name again. And I get it. But we never knew what the plan was. Never. And look, JT talks to the coach every week, and I don't think he ever understood what the plan was. Right? I know that we would have Lincoln Kennedy come on the show every week, and he would talk about the offensive line, and he would talk about the team, and he'd say, I don't know what the identity is, Q. I'm like, Link, it's 8 weeks into the season. I know. I don't know, right? But the plan that we talk about so often feels like it's been executed from day one since the season got wrapped up. Because even guys like me said, Tyler Linderbaum makes all the sense in the world. You need to go ahead and address that offensive line. Go get your starting center in free agency. You got the money, go do it. Boom, they did it. And look, I don't think that the plan's been executed just because what we talked about and the ideas we threw out there, a lot of them came to fruition. That's not the reason. It just seems like it was a plan of attack. It was very purposeful, right? They went out there and made Linderbaum a priority. Hell, they've made Speedy Naylor a priority without even throwing some money at him. They just said, hey, man, we want you to be a part of this. Okay, cool, bet. Right? They made Quay Walker a priority. They made Nakobe Dean a priority. As Max said when he was on his flight to Baltimore, all of a sudden he's getting bink. Oh, the Raiders just came to agreement with Tyler Linderbaum. Bink. Oh, the Raiders just came to agreement with Quay Walker. Bink. Oh, the Raiders just came to agreement with Nakobe Dean. Bink, bink. They just came to agreement with, Like, he's seeing this on the plane like, damn. They're putting in work, which means to me that doesn't happen because we're sitting around and like, all right, Ari, we got $100 million. What do we want to do? Like, John Spytek didn't wake up the Monday of the tampering period and was like, all right, well, what do you think? Who should we call first? Whose agent should we get on the phone first? Well, you want to go defense? You want to go offense? Like, it wasn't I guarantee that didn't happen. There was a plan in place. It was on the whiteboard. It was written down. It was a combination of two, whatever. It was a plan of attack. This is our priority one. This is priority 1A, priority 1B. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is who we want to make sure is in the mix in 2026. And they went out and did that. And, well before free agency ever hit, they went and got their head coach. And they had to stall that whole situation out and drag it out until the Seattle Seahawks went and won the Super Bowl. That's why, to me, it seems like the plan of attack has gone smooth. And that's, to me, why that box has been checked. When Antonio Pierce was the head coach, what was something that he prioritized? Oh, got to get the quarterback. Got to get the quarterback. Guess what? They never got the quarterback. Right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times AP said to us or said on the record, hey, got to go get a quarterback, got to go get that guy, can't get a Band-Aid. Well, they ended up with a Band-Aid in Gardner Minshew, and we all know how that situation played out. Right? Last year, there was conversations and questions. All right, well, Geno Smith is, he's short-term, but what's next? Who's next after? Well, we don't have any idea. So there wasn't a plan of attack in place as far as I'm concerned. This year, it was all set up, especially obviously being in control with the number 1 overall pick. All right, we're going to go get our quarterback of the future, but we've got to have A, B, C, and D all addressed before we go get them. And that's exactly what they did, including, which might be the most important addition, the head coach and the coach getting his staff. Not getting the staff that a bunch of guys put together, but getting his staff. That, to me, because it feels like the plan was in place and it's been executed, that's why that box has been checked, and that's why it's different for me than what it's been in previous years where I sat in this seat and said, yeah, think that this could work. That's the reason I have confidence going into training camp that's going to start up in a couple of weeks. 702-365-9200. We do want to hear from you. Let's hear from the Smasher. Juan the Smasher, lead us off. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's up, Q? What's going on?
Man, you got it, man. I'm kicking it.
Man, I know, that's right. I'm here trying to get it, Q. Yeah, and to answer your question, yeah, you're right, man. Coach Kubiak, that's the man who we needed all along. Him and the first overall pick. I want Kirk to do his thing. I don't want to see him out there throw no picks and play bad like that. But we got some guys on defense that can give him back the ball. And my boy Ashton Genty, this fool is going to get 1,000 yards. Isn't a bounce back like the first and 15, like the greatest comeback like Michael Jordan. This fool is going to come back with a vengeance. On first and 10, they're going to feed that fool, and I guarantee you those defenders are not going to want to test that fool. And that's all I'm saying is Coach Kubiak, the first overall pick, well, we're going to get it done. And with a fresh JT and a Brock Bowers, that's a formula for success, Q. I guarantee it. You know what I'm saying? I'm hyped up. This is the year where the Raiders do this to me every year. I don't care what no one says. Raiders, thank you for everything you do, Q.
I appreciate you, man. It's always great to hear from the Smasher, man. Juan the Smasher right there on the call. Got a little excitement in his voice. You can hear the juice in Juan the Smasher's voice. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. And, yeah, I mean, look, that could end up being a three-headed monster when it's all said and done, right? And I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but just remember these names. Not like it's going to be hard. Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Fernando Mendoza. If that could be a three-headed monster for this Raiders offense moving forward for years to come, they're on to something special. It's not too often that a team gets the best tight end and then turns around the next year and gets the best running back and then turns around the next year and gets the best quarterback. But that, in my opinion, is what the Raiders did. Now, obviously, it still remains to be seen, right? Genty's got a lot of work that he's got to do, and Fernando Mendoza hasn't thrown a pass. So he's got a lot of work to do as well. But very easily, very possibly, the Raiders could have hit on the best in all three of those positions, 3 drafts in a row. We do want to hear from you, 702-365-9200. What, in your opinion, makes this year feel different than others years that we felt this team was moving in the right direction? What box, in your opinion, has been checked to give you the confidence? Let us know your thoughts. We'll hear from Kirk Morrison, his response to that on yesterday. We'll do that next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
That was the opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920 AM. Brought to you by Paul Padala. It's not about the injury. It's about the recovery.
The goal, I don't think anybody in their head is like, yeah, this is a Super Bowl year. We're going to go make a run or even a playoff. You're just trying to get better. And by the end of the season, you want that arrow to be pointing up and you want to be feeling optimism that we are on the right track. We have our right guy. And next year, we're going to put another piece in there. We're going to go for it. I think you need him to get reps in order to really feel confident at the end of the year that you've accomplished that.
You're listening to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
Lindsay Rhodes right there from SumerSports.com. She was a guest on this fine show that we call Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920, talking about the Raiders' goals, the direction, especially with Fernando Mendoza, and what should be a goal this year, knowing that, hey, one, it's a tough division, it's a lot of new, it's a tough schedule. Make no mistake that this is not a team that we're sitting there writing in some red ink to be a playoff team or make a push for a Super Bowl, but just knowing that the pieces are starting to come in place and what you have to do to get that quarterback of the future lined up and set up for what could potentially be a great franchise run for him at the QB position, get things started. Obviously, that goes back to the debate of, do you play Fernando right away? Do you wait, hold out? She's talking about get as many reps in as possible after the boxes are checked and you feel comfortable. You'll actually hear a little bit more from her later on in the show as we do football right. But again, it's Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. I threw out the question, what in your opinion makes this year different than the other years that we felt this team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you confidence? And before we hear from Kirk Morrison, who I asked that same question to on yesterday when he joined the show, I want you to hear this response that I just received from my guy DJ Connect. And look, let me tell you a little something about it. We and him have gone way back since his time in Texas and my time in Texas. He is not a Raider fan. So when I get a response from a guy who's not a Raider fan, but he's listening to this show because, again, of our friendship, and it's a really good response like this, I want to make sure to pass it along, and I think it really helps put everything in perspective in a conversation like this. And he said, I feel like the Raiders are finally building the foundation first. Improved offensive line, defensive anchors, instead of just going out and grabbing the fastest dude from the combine. Oh, yeah, they got their long-term franchise quarterback. I've heard nothing but good and seen nothing but good from Mendoza. And he said, hell, you're going to make me a Raider fan. LOL, reminds me a lot like the early 90s when they built the Cowboys. And, again, that's coming from a Cowboy fan who is a really good dude in DJ Connect. So I appreciate, and I can really, really even appreciate that even more, because it's not someone who's just trying to see through silver and black glasses and see that, oh, the Raiders can't do no wrong and Raider Nation going to be, super happy because they're going to the Super Bowl this year. They're going to be representing. This is someone that has a perspective of a fan of another team, but also looks over and says, I may be a fan of this team, but, man, I really like what that team is doing over there. They actually have some really good direction. And then to go back and say it reminds me of the 90s when the Cowboys were being built, that's also a hell of a statement and really some praise as far as I'm concerned. So I definitely wanted to make sure to pass that along. But I also wanted to pass along what Kirk Morrison had to say on this show yesterday when we heard the sounds of Marcus Allen, when he said that this team he felt was headed in the right direction under Clint Kubiak. And I said, hey, Kirk, people ask me that all the time. I'm sure your friends, your family, people ask you that all the time. How do you answer that question of how you actually know that this team is headed in the right direction?
It's a good question, Q. I actually answer it different ways. Someone would ask me, what do you think about the direction? And I would say, this is new. It's different. But I think that our alignment is probably the best that I've seen in the time that since I was a player. I would say that the structure is better than since I was a then Oakland Raider. And I'm talking about the hierarchy of just the football team. I'm talking about there's an owner, and then there's the ownership groups that are involved. There's a president of the team. There is a general manager of the team. There is now assistant general managers and other people who work within the front office and those types of things. But then you also now have a head coach, and you have the, his coaching staff that he's put together. Everything seems to be in lockstep. And then the way that it's kind of come about this entire offseason, I kind of point out, and I was thinking about this as we enter into training camp and as I start to put some things together and put it out for social media, this offseason hasn't always been as smooth as we want to think, but it seems to have gone smooth because there's quieter heads have prevailed, if I said that right, because you've had instances that would make the organization seem dysfunctional or tend to crumble, and yet we were able to overcome some of the adverse situations and have turned them all into positives, whether it was the Max Crosby trade that didn't happen or no trade, or the signing of Kirk Cousins, the free agency that you're able to keep because of the non-trade for Max Crosby, the first overall pick in Fernando Mendoza, and everything that has kind of come along with that. I mean, think about the Christian Wilkins situation. We still have no conclusion on that one just yet. Right. So when people say, how do you view this team? And I'm just saying right now they're checking the boxes on the things that could create distractions, but are clearly not. Like, people are making up distractions. Like the narrative now is what can we talk about for the Raiders to get them going? Like because right now truly the storyline is going to be Fernando, and rightfully so. It's the first overall pick. But if you ask me right now, what has changed? Why does it feel different? I think it's because of the way that they've handled themselves and have kept things, really close to the fist.
Kirk Morrison on the show yesterday answering the question that I threw out there to you. Again, what in your opinion makes this year different than other years? Then we felt this team was moving in the right direction. What box has been checked to give you that confidence? And as calm as Kirk responded to that, feels like what this offseason's been like. Right? As I'm listening back to that, and Kirk is calm, cool, collective, as he always is, it's like, yeah, this is almost soothing, right? And not to, sound cheesy or corny or whatever. It's almost just a soothing, smooth, calm, relaxed sound, right? Not too fired up, not angry, obviously, but just kind of like, yeah. This is what it is. And anything that could be a distraction, and there's been some situations that popped up. The Max Crosby situation was somewhat of a distraction. It caught our attention for a few weeks around here, right, to the point where everyone started to roll their eyes when the conversation popped up. But it is what it is. And we know that conversation is going to pop up again. I wouldn't say Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza is a distraction, but it's a storyline. It's a narrative. Right? And what's the best plan of attack? Do you play him now? Do you wait? I think Jason Horowitz said it best when he joined the morning tailgate. He said, look, if Fernando doesn't play all year this year, and then 3 years from now you're talking about a Pro Bowl quarterback and he's at the top of his game, he's a top 10 quarterback, everyone's going to say, see, that was the right approach. They did it right. But if he doesn't play at all this year and then he comes out and a couple years from now you still have questions on if he is or if he isn't, then you're going to say, well, see, you did it wrong. So it's until everything actually plays out, as Clint Kubiak always says, it will reveal itself. Until it actually reveals itself, we just don't know. So that's one of those narratives and one of those conversations. There's not a right answer. Vinny Bonsignore could pound that table all he wants, and trust and believe he will. Right? He will. I could jump in the car in the morning, tune on the morning tailgate. As soon as I hear Vinny, I know. My man was talking about Eli Manning and Kurt Warner this morning, right? And the way that the Giants transitioned from Warner to Eli Manning and the circumstances that played into it. And, talked about Derek Carr winning the job out of training camp back in 2014. And, he's brought up all these great examples. And, again, he's not wrong. But it doesn't mean that because that situation worked out in that direction for those particular guys that it's all the same cookie cutter. It doesn't always work the same for everybody. And that could be even in the, hey, sit and wait approach, right? That might work for some people, don't work for others. So, that's why the people that are way smarter than us, the people that make way more money than us, they'll be making that ultimate decision. And as Lindsey Rhodes pointed out, once they feel comfortable with the quarterback having the command of the offense, with the offensive line being in the place that it needs to be, with the weapons that are around the quarterback having a sense that they know what they're doing, at that point, once that box is checked, that's when you make the move. Whenever that is, right? There is no certain date. Like you go to the store, and when I was working at the grocery store, we always faced everything, meaning that the stuff that was already on the shelf, we pushed to the front and put like the older milk, or not the older milk, the newer milk with the later expiration date, we put it behind the one with the expiration date coming up. So if the expiration date on the milk was July 15th, guess what? That was going to the front shelf. And the expiration date with July 24th was going to the back. Because I want to sell that first, right? And so, there is no dates. There is no dates. There is no expiration. It's going to be when it is. And it's going to be those coaches that ultimately make the end decision. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to debate it. But it's one of those things that there's not going to be a correct answer. But I do feel like there's a correct answer when it comes to what I'm asking this afternoon. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than other years that we felt this team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you that confidence? Barry in Baltimore said, to me, the box that has been checked that gives me confidence with this year's team is actually letting the GM do his job and hire his coach of choice. And most importantly, and this is just my opinion, hiring an offensive-minded coach when your first pick in round one is a quarterback or allows those two to build together, which allows those two to build together for years to come. And I think, Barry, that's a fantastic point, and I know that we had that conversation here on the show. right? When we were talking about who would be the best fit for the Raiders as their next head coach once we knew that they were in a coaching search. And many people, including yourself, chimed in and said, hey, it makes more sense to align the first overall pick as a quarterback with an offensive-minded coach so you don't have to replace him. There's a lot of expectations for the Chargers this year. There's a lot of expectations every year for them, right? They're always talked about as this is going to be the year Justin Herbert's going to break out and then something happens. But there's a lot of expectations this year because Mike McDaniel is there as the offensive coordinator. Oh, he's going to get the most out of Justin Herbert. And I'm not going to lie. I'm intrigued. I want to see what it looks like. Not that I think that they're going to go be some Super Bowl champs, but I'm intrigued. You got me, right? I'll buy that storyline. Okay. He's a good offensive coordinator. Not a good head coach, but a good offensive coordinator. What's he going to do with the quarterback who everyone says is the quarterback that you would build if you're building a quarterback in the lab? Okay, what's he going to look like? Because for all these years you told me how great this quarterback is, and he hasn't won a playoff game yet. Now, I don't want to get sideways and get off the subject because you know I will when it comes to Justin Herbert. It's one of those that I'm very passionate about, which, by the way, I think a lot of people are actually catching up to the conversation I've been having about him for years now. Everyone's starting to catch up. Yeah, I'm not falling for that this year. Fell for that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hearing more and more of that, and it makes me feel a lot better because we've been talking about that here on this fine program for some years now. So a little justification for us, Raider Nation, that everyone's starting to, sometimes you're late to the party. I was late to the Lions party. People are late to the Justin Herbert ain't all that party. Right? I was hosting the party. Everybody else is just happen to show up when they show up, so that's fine. But there's the expectations that they're going to be good. The problem is if they are really good and he does turn into that guy, what's going to happen? He's going to be at the top of the food chain for a head coaching job. And so all of a sudden he leaves. And so to Barry's point, when the Raiders were going through their coaching search, many people said, yeah, this coach is probably a good coach, but if all of a sudden the offense is cooking with grease, they're probably going to leave and take a head coaching job. Just like you saw in Philadelphia, right? I mean, go back and look. The Eagles have had, 5 offensive coordinators in 6 years? 2 of which ended up getting head coaching jobs in Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore because they were really good. And they went to the Super Bowl. And, oh, by the way, the head coach that the Raiders have, where did he go? To the Super Bowl, right? When you have an offense that cooks, teams are going to want to hire that guy. And so, yeah, this gives the opportunity for Clint Kubiak to cook with grease with his quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, and as Barry pointed out, tied at the hip from day one and don't have to worry about, well, this team is going to come snatch this guy up. No. The Raiders have their guy, and if all goes well, they can have their guy for years to come. We want to hear from you, Barry. Fantastic text. Let us know your thoughts, 702-365-9200. Again, what in your opinion makes this year different than other years that we felt that this team was moving in the right direction? What box, in your opinion, has been checked to give you that confidence? Remember, we don't have another guest until 3:30 when John McClain, for 3 o'clock, I'm just kidding. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, will join us coming up at 3 o'clock to give us a little bit of preview of that team. And then we have John McClain at 3:30, but we'll close out hour number 1 hearing from you here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Yeah, the 2 guys I mentioned in particular really stand out to me with Quay and Nakobe, but particularly Nakobe. I mean, you go and turn on the film. Any chance that guy gets matched up with a running back in pass protection, I mean, it just seems like he's blowing that dude up, really aggressive dude, heat-seeking missile-type player. I'm so fascinated to see how they use him in particular, but even with Quay, he talks about playing more positions than he ever has in his life, and again, I think that's where him moving around, him blitzing from different spots, all those different things, it's going to be fascinating to see.
You're listening to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
Jesse Merrick from this morning. He founded the Silver and Black Network, does a fantastic job. All his work that he puts out, I definitely encourage you to go check it out if you haven't. Him talking about Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, revamped linebacker room that the Raiders have. We talked about those weapons defensively and how there's difference makers on all levels. It's not just Max Crosby and them. Now there's Max Crosby, and there's Quay Walker, and there's Nakobe Dean, and you feel good about Eric Stokes coming back. And, they brought in guys through the draft that you feel like could end up being difference makers as well. You're starting to see the pieces put into place, and that's what Jesse was talking about when he's talking about those 2 Georgia boys, as Jeremy Fowler from ESPN called them, Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. We do want to hear from you here on Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than other years? We felt that this team was moving in the right direction. What box has been checked to give you that confidence? Let's go out to one of our favorites. That's our guy, Charles. Charles in Oregon, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, Q?
How you doing, my man?
Good. How about yourself, brother?
Hey, man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed by the best. I can't complain.
Yes, sir. So I got two things for you. One is, whenever you want to improve, truly make yourself better, you have to know who you really are. And over the years, I'm going to tie this in with number two. You got to know who you are. And number two, there's finally a sense of humility. And let me explain what I mean by that. So you got Josh McDaniels coming in, smart offensive mind, just like Kubiak, right? But what's the difference? He's like, we're doing it my way. We got to do it my way. We're doing it the Patriot way. Didn't work, right? And he was just focused on that. And when you go into that season, you go pick up Devontae, give up a first and a second round pick, and then you're not that good. And that's the other thing. Know who you are. Know your roster. You got to identify that you need to build up your roster, and not with getting Larry Brown after a Super Bowl win by the Cowboys, or so many years of picking up these guys and spending way too much money. No, you look at youth that's out there that can grow with the existing core that you have. And so, again, know who you are, level of humility. What did Pete Carroll say? We're going to win at least 10 games. I knew as soon as he said that, we're screwed. So my point is, you've got to have humility. I think Kubiak brings that. I think that they realize they got to do this and not jump the shark. You've got to go step by step and do this right, and we're finally on track with that because we know who we are and where we need to go, and we got humility. Hey, God bless you guys. Have a great day.
Hey, great call, Charles. And I think that's what John Spytek immediately said once they made the letting go of Pete Carroll official, and he had that press conference. He said, hey, look, this is not going to be an overnight turnaround. We have to build this, and it's because what you just said, Charles, that he understood and they knew who the Raiders truly were. Not a playoff team, not a team that was a quick fix, but a true build. Really good call. Appreciate that. Hour number 2, Ross Jackson is up next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
They don't have far to go, and we know Tyler Shuck coming back in the second year, the way he finished last season, completing 68% of his passes. They go out and get him Jordan Tyson to go with Chris Olave. They've got several receiving tight ends. That offensive line is pretty good. We know that Brandon Staley-led defense was in the top 10 in most metrics. Overall, the roster is better. Kellen Moore in this offense, they should be better now that Shuck is going to be the starter going into training camp. They've got the potential to have a very, very strong season and maybe make some hay overall in the NFC.
It's the Raiders opponent preview. Right now on Unnecessary Roughness.
You heard Steve Weiss right there from the NFL Network talking about the Saints and kind of expectations for upcoming season and what they could do with Tyler Shuck there as the quarterback and Kellen Moore going into another year as the head coach. And just a side note, Steve Weiss will be a guy that you can hear on this show, Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920, coming up on Thursday at 3 o'clock. So go ahead and pencil that into your notebook. But we do want to turn our attention to the New Orleans Saints as we're doing a little bit of strength, weakness, and X factor with all the opponents of the Silver and Black that aren't in the division. And obviously the Saints are not in the division. They're in the NFC South, and they finished 6-11, fourth place last year, but 6-11 in a division where 8-9 got it done. So clearly they feel like that they can make some moves. So to help us understand the Saints a little bit more, a little bit better, I guess that's not proper English, more better, right? Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints. He joins us now. And Ross, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you. And hopefully you can make us understand the Saints a little bit more better. But what are your...
Yeah, man, I got you, man. We're going to make it more better. We're going to make it more better.
There you go. There you go. So what are your thoughts, man? What's the feeling around the Saints right now? Again, finished the season last year at 6-11, but you heard everything Steve Weiss had to say coming in. A lot of reason for optimism.
Yeah, optimism is the exact word, man, and there's a lot of that here in New Orleans as well, both from the fan base, which you can feel outside of the facility, and then there's also, optimism inside of the facility. And look, you can listen to general manager Mickey Loomis, you listen to head coach Kellen Moore. Those guys aren't going to do anything outward that's going to put a lot of pressure on their young quarterback. But you can look at the moves, right? You can look at the action. And drafting Jordan Tyson, number 8 overall, going out there, building up their offensive line with the addition of David Edwards, signing Travis Etienne Jr. to help to support that run game. It's so very clear that this team believes in its young quarterback. I think that's a big source of the optimism. I think they very much believe in their defense as well, which down the stretch last year performed extremely well. and they were able to get Cam Jordan back, all those pieces. I think optimism is exactly what I would say is kind of the sense that you can feel around and inside the Saints facility right now.
Now, the Saints drafted Tyler Shough last season, and you know, he wasn't the number one overall pick like the Raiders had with Fernando Mendoza. But what was it that was the deciding factor of, okay, it's time to get the young rookie into the game?
Yeah, I think part of it was Spencer Rattler struggling a little bit against the Chicago Bears Week 7, struggled a bit against that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense in the first half there. And then at that point, the Saints made their decision to transition over to Tyler Shough in the second half of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and then just kind of never looked back from that point. That was around when we expected the transition to happen. They wanted to make sure that Tyler Shough was prepared and ready. They didn't want to rush him out onto the field. During training camp, it was clear that Spencer Rattler was kind of out to an early lead, which makes sense. He was coming into a second year. He had played in games during his rookie season, all that. And so getting that opportunity to kind of sit back and develop, I think, was big. And it paid dividends for New Orleans. I think one of the things that you can hear Kellen Moore constantly talk about was watching Tyler Shough during the scout team portion of practice where things aren't pretty, right? You're operating a backup offense going up against a starting defense, and things aren't usually pretty in those scenarios. And so you're scrambling, you're buying time, you're getting the ball out, you're extending plays, you're doing all those things. We're really impressed with the way that he managed that, the way that he handled pressure, all of that. And I think we saw all of those traits show up during his 9 starts.
So Kellen Moore is the head coach there. He was the offensive whiz kid. I mean, I remember him back in Dallas when I thought he was going to be the next Cowboys head coach. Then he was with the Chargers, and he was supposed to make Justin Herbert really good. And then he got to the Super Bowl with the Eagles and helped them win. Now he's the head man in New Orleans. How have you seen him grow from being an OC to being the head coach, just like the Raiders have, and now in Clint Kubiak with that same opportunity?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is, there were a lot of question marks around Kellen Moore coming in about whether or not he could be that quote-unquote leader of men. And that's always kind of the big conversation when it comes to the head coaches. Are you the X's and O's head coach, or are you kind of the emotional leader and vocal leader? And I think like what Kellen Moore has proved is that he's kind of exactly what it is that the type of coach that this generation of football player likes to work with. They want an X's and O's coach that knows the game of football. And I think that his football background, having been the winningest quarterback in NCAA history, being an NFL quarterback, all of that, ends up, kind of working in his favor as well. His players trust him, all of that. And I think that the other thing that he's done extremely well is that he's put people around him that can kind of elevate the other areas that he doesn't have kind of a foothold in, like the defense, right? Bringing in Brandon Staley to run the defense. Kellen Moore is an offensive head coach, an offensive mind, an offensive play caller. He goes and he gets a great defensive play caller and defensive coordinator and defensive architect in Brandon Staley. So I think there was a little bit of an understanding of, okay, where do I need to get somebody that's going to elevate other areas that are outside of my expertise? And so I think he's done a good job there. I think the growth really comes from what he's done so far as a leader, the way that he's kind of embraced change. You look at his time during, going from Dallas to Los Angeles to Philly. Those were 3 different kinds of offenses that he ran. He gets to New Orleans and he's using different pieces of that, but he's also creating some new things and working on some new things. And now going into his second year in New Orleans, there's a bunch of stuff they threw out of the playbook. There's a bunch of stuff they honed in on in the playbook, and there's a bunch of stuff they're adding to the playbook going into 2026. And so I think that the approach of building
Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. All right, try to reconnect. He was getting a little robotic there at the end there. So try to reconnect with Ross and let me know in my ear if you got him, because I want to get into, because really it's really good stuff. When Ross, I'm sensing a lot of the same storylines, I guess is the best way to put it. Similarities with the Raiders, right? I mean, Kellen Moore, offensive-minded head coach, offensive-minded guy who's been at different places and has ran different offenses. And you look at Clint Kubiak, he did that in New Orleans, matter of fact, as the OC, did that in Seattle, did that in Minnesota. And so that's some similarities right there. And then bringing in a defensive-minded coach to run the defense. So there's a lot of similarities between the Saints and the Raiders. So I want to make sure that we're able to hear Ross clearly again. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, joins us now. And Ross, thanks so much again, man. Great stuff that you're breaking down. So as we move from Kellen Moore to just what this team's outlook is this year, what would you say the strength is going to be for the Saints?
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is I would actually look over the defensive side of the football. I think the defensive side of the football for New Orleans is very much being slept on. That was a defensive unit that once it got rolling towards the end of the season, and let's be fair, the competition level lightened up big time towards the end of the schedule than than what it was at the beginning of the schedule. But that's going to happen again here in 2026. And so when you're playing your most important football in November and December, your defense was shutting down teams or keeping teams to 26 points at most. It was one of the best scoring defenses in the NFL, finished as one of the top scoring defenses, finished as one of the top passing defenses as well. And so, and from a rushing yards, like an EPA per rush side, or when you get into kind of deeper efficiency metrics and things like that, they were a top 2 team in the NFL in that perspective, even though they allowed 19th most rushing yards in the league. And so I think that for New Orleans, really the strength comes down to its defense. And as the defense is able to perform, it makes the job of the offense a little bit better. I think the biggest thing for New Orleans is being able to establish the dominance on that side. If they're continuing to hold opponents to 24 points, that gives their offense, as young as it is, it gives that offense an opportunity to go out there and put some points on the board and win some games.
So defensively, you're looking at as the strength of the New Orleans Saints coming up in 2026. When you flip it on the other side and you start to look at a weakness, what would you say is probably the biggest weakness for New Orleans?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them is going to be setting the tone by early starts. This was a team that really, really struggled. They had one of the worst point differentials in the NFL in the first half last year. That's a lot to ask of a football team going into the second half. And so they were the worst red zone team in the NFL last year. They were the worst team. Were one of the worst teams in terms of scoring and keeping points off the board in the first half. For me, it's the situational side of the game. And so if they're able to kind of close the gap on that a little bit, that's going to be big. But as of right now, I would look at that as a weakness for sure.
What would you say, or how much would you say Jordan Tyson should be able to help out that Saints offense, knowing that Olave's there, but all of a sudden this guy, as long as he's healthy, is a hell of a wide receiver in Jordan Tyson?
Yeah, man, I think that's one of the reasons why you go and get them. Like the two things that I just talked about were starting games early as well as scoring in the red zone, finishing in the red zone. They were 44.4% in the red zone last year. And Jordan Tyson is outstanding in the red zone, was all throughout his collegiate career. So if you've got him on the field, you've got Chris Olave on the field, and you have a guy that caught 81.8% of his contested catch opportunities last year, best in the NFL for any wide receiver that saw more than 10 contested catch opportunities in Devon Vele. That's going to be a really good trio to have on the field in the red zone. And so if you get the opportunity to be able to, get those guys involved and keep those guys out on the field, I think that's going to be big for them. And so being able to turn those 3-point moments, those 3-point red zone visits in the first half that we saw a lot of last year into 7 points would be big for New Orleans. And I think Jordan Tyson's going to play a big role in that.
Well, Ross, you're lucky you don't have Fabian as a fan of the Saints, because Fabian, he's a big fan of the Raiders, and every time the Raiders settle for 3 as opposed to 7, all of a sudden a -4 tweet comes our way. And I'll tell you, Ross, if I see one more of these damn -4 tweets, I'm going to pull the rest of the hair that I have out left. Now, you ain't got no hair, so you ain't got to worry about that. But, man, these -4 tweets drive me crazy, brother. So at least you don't have to worry about that. I'm just saying.
That's awesome. I love a passionate fan that knows the game, though, man, and that's big. Like those -4s, they do add up to you. They do add up for sure.
No, they do, and he's not wrong. It's just every time it happens, I know. Oh, damn, here it comes.
Okay, we get it.
Exactly, but his point is taken. For sure, and clearly that's a big issue as well with the Saints. And so we've done the strength, we've done the weakness. I'll say that the X factor for the Saints might be the division, because, again, the Saints won 6 games, and the division winner won 8 last year. But I don't want to put poo on the division, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what would you say for the Saints is the X factor?
Well, honestly, where I'm going to go isn't too far away from that. I think it's the schedule as a whole, and that includes playing inside of the NFC South for sure. I think that's a big part of it. First of all, the Saints have a really favorable schedule. They get the bye week off of the international trip Even their international trip is conveniently located because they're not flying from New Orleans to Paris. They're going straight from New York City to Paris to get the Giants on the road before they go there. There's no 3-game road trips for this team all throughout. They have a lot of road games towards the end. Like, there's a lot of really good and favorable pieces of the schedule, and their November and December is easier than their September and October, which is always a massive help for any NFL team that's looking to compete within a winnable division, and the winnable division is a part of it. Not only were the Saints a 6-win team last year, finishing just shy of the 8-win Carolina Panthers that won, I think it was like week 17 or week 16, they were still in contention to potentially win the division, Q, depending upon how the rest of the division performed. Like, that's where this NFC South division is. Nobody wants to win it. This year, it feels very much like the Saints want to win it. I think that their schedule, which includes playing the NFC South, is a massive X factor for them and their opportunity next year.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know one thing. The Raiders will be making their trip to New Orleans on September 27th, so it's just a couple more weeks than 2 months away from that Week 3 action, the Saints and the Raiders. They're in New Orleans, and we got a little bit of strength, weakness, and X factor from our guy, Ross Jackson, who's always the X factor, Locked On Saints. Ross, fantastic stuff, man. What are you working on that we should be on the lookout for?
Oh, man, just keeping up with everything going on. We're so close to training camp. I can smell football in the air. You can feel it all around the French Quarter. You can feel it all around here. And so the biggest thing is just making sure that every fan is up to date, knows what to watch, knows what's going on, position by position and beyond when it comes to training camp. So we're going to be keeping up with that over on Locked On Saints every single day and make sure everybody's ready to go for when camp gets started later on this month.
And congratulations on your recent engagement. I want to make sure I tell you that, too. So there you go.
Thank you. Man, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I'll pass it on to the future missus as well. But, yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. That means a lot.
Absolutely, man. Well, keep up the great work. You know you do a fantastic job. I'm proud to call you a colleague, and thanks so much for your time, my man.
Hey, right back at you, homie. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me. Y'all take care. Stay safe. I'll talk to you here soon.
All right, my man. There he goes. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, the newly engaged Ross Jackson. And it's so funny. He does a fantastic job with that show. And I talk about going to the barbershop every Saturday. And one of the barbers in there, Q, it's funny, his name is Q, he's a big Saints fan, so we're always talking. He's talking Locked On Saints, I'm talking Locked On Raiders, so we always go back and forth. He's like, oh, man, I saw Ross, and he said this, and da-da-da. So it's kind of cool that we have that connection, which just shows how big that network is, the Locked On Podcast Network, that, you know, it touches so many different people, so many different fan bases, and, you know, I'm up there every Saturday chopping it up with my guy Q, and we chop it up with everybody in the shop, but he's a big Saints fan, and so, of course, I got to hold it down for the silver and black. So he knows Ross just like many people know Ross that are Saints fans. But we do appreciate his time this afternoon. And, again, September 27th, that'll be Week 3 when the Raiders will be on the road in New Orleans taking on the Saints, who won 6 games. And, you know, it's wild. I was talking about the similarities between the Saints and the Raiders, and I truly do believe there's a ton of them. And the one big difference, the division. The division is the NFC South. Man, they won 6 games last year, and yes, they were in 4th place, but the division winner only won 8. That ain't going to fly in the AFC West, right? We've been talking about, how many times have we said, hey, 6 wins would be a nice just turn of events and be a nice build from what the Raiders did last year. But guess what? 6 wins, yeah, it's going to be 4th place, but it ain't going to have you 2 games out of 1st place. That's for damn sure. That's the difference, is that in that division, you can win 6 or 7 games, 8, and, I mean, not even have a winning record and win the division. The AFC West is not going to go down like that. So that's the other big hurdle that the Raiders have to overcome. But there's so many similarities from a rookie head coach in Kellen Moore when they acquired him. You know, obviously getting their starting quarterback in Tyler Shook, right? Being able to get things turned around, and that Kellen Moore being an offensive mastermind and being a sharp offensive mind. And I'm telling you, there was conversation about him being the head coach when he was in Dallas, to the point where he was Mike McCarthy's guy, that Jerry Jones made sure, hey, yeah, you're not bringing in someone else to be the OC. We're sticking with him. We like him. And then he finally had to break out of there because Mike McCarthy's like, this guy ain't going to take my job. Right? Then he gets to L.A. with the Chargers, and then he ends up in Philadelphia and wins the Super Bowl, and boom, he's the head coach. But that's been in the works for a long time. His name had been in the head coaching cycle for a while. Well, Clint Kubiak's name had been in the cycle for a while when he was the OC in New Orleans. It didn't take more than 2 or 3 weeks of him being the OC where everyone said, hey, man, that's the next head coach. Man, they're putting up 40 points a game. That's the next head coach. He's got Derek Carr playing at MVP level. I mean, those are the conversations that were going on. So there's a lot of similarities there. The one big difference is a division. Many thanks to Ross Jackson for his time this afternoon. We got John McClain talking all things NFL coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But we do want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. The conversation and the topic that I threw out there today, what in your opinion makes this year different than other years? Then we felt that this team was moving in the right direction. What boxes has been checked to give you that confidence? And, one of the other things that we've been discussing is the top 10 rankings that have been released from Jeremy Fowler, and every day it's a new position. Yesterday was quarterback, so obviously there was no Raider representation on that. Well, today was off-ball linebacker, and if you remember, Jeremy Fowler joined the show when this whole top 10 rankings, when he started releasing it, when he was talking about the running backs, and then he started talking about the offseason that the Raiders have had. So they didn't have someone that landed on the top 10 as far as the off-ball linebackers, but honorable mention, and he had talked about this on the show, and you'll actually hear from Jeremy Fowler in a hot second, was Quay Walker. And an NFC assistant coach said the light finally came on for him last year. I thought he diagnosed the run game better than in the past. He's always been fast, long, and can hit. He's a guy that I've identified as a difference maker for the Raiders defense, and now he gets the opportunity to play in multiple positions as opposed to what he was, I don't want to say pigeonholed, but what he was playing there in Green Bay, and he's mentioned it before, but a really good, maybe one that's not being talked about enough, nice acquisition from John Spytek and company as they went out and addressed that in free agency and made sure that they revamped that linebacker room. But if you don't remember when Jeremy Fowler was on the show and I asked him about the direction that this team is going just in general from a national point of view, this is what Jeremy had to say.
I like the linebackers. Quay Walker is, well, I won't give it away, but he didn't make my top 10, but he was right there. He's like in that 10-11 range. So you got a Georgia duo there. I mean, I think in free agency they added the right pieces. They're willing to spend, but got players that will make them instantly better. And free agency has shown recently that if you have the right guys, they're going to be instant upgrades and they're going to really produce, and it's not wasted money like it maybe used to be perceived to be. So there's no reason why the Raiders can't get better in a hurry based on those moves.
So there you go. That was Jeremy Fowler. He joined the show back on, I want to say this was the 6th, maybe July 6th. So just over a week ago when he started releasing the top 10 and was talking about just the upgrades. And that kind of goes back, that statement that he made kind of goes back and co-signs with what DJ Connect said. They're not just out signing guys that are fast. They're not just out signing guys that are strong. They're not just outside getting guys that are combine workout warriors, but they're out there getting the guys that make sense. And that's why when you go back to the conversation when we said what box has been checked to give you confidence that this team is moving in the right directions, it's signings like that. It's draft picks like that. It's that box that they continue to check. Jimmy in Vancouver hit us on the text line and said, "Hey, Q, you're on fire as usual. The box that I would tick is the box that I would check, is the atmosphere in the dressing room. You'd have to go back to when this team was going to the playoffs consistently, but when everyone was on the same page from the players to the coaches, they're all saying the right things and appear to be a group that cares and is proud to wear the shield." That's Jimmy in Vancouver, and so he brings up the point of all being on the same page, all understanding, what's going on and what's the task at hand is, and it's not about it's about we. Right, it's going back to the locker room and the camaraderie in the locker room. And, that kind of, again, goes back to what Kirk Morrison said. You heard that in the first hour when he said, hey, this is the first time it's been as lined as it is since I was an Oakland Raider, which tells you all you need to know. Jimmy, thanks for the text. Appreciate the compliment as well. Central Coast Raider said, hey, Q, good afternoon. The obvious move is the coach. But for me, it's got to be the roster moves they made for young players. Getting the old players was just getting like the players old. I'm still wondering, though, if they make those same moves, if they would have known Max was coming back. Man, that was the best thing that could have happened for the Raiders. One last thing. I've been MIA from the radio. Did you run your 40 yet? Remember, I got $250,000, $250 for Ryan Hoke's charity. If you didn't, let me know. Go Raiders. No, I never got around to that. I don't actually know what happened. That was a combine conversation. I don't know where that went. I just know that I haven't pulled that off. We actually were working on it in the building. I was working with Steph McKenzie from our sister station on putting something together, a charity situation, and for some reason it hasn't come to fruition. Then I went on vacation, and let's just say when I was on vacation, I was in no 40 mode, if you know what I mean. I don't think I'm in 40 mode anyway in general, vacation or not vacation. But, yeah, that's where that stands at this stage of the game. Maybe at some point we'll get that cooking. But, yeah, that's a good catch right there. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Let's keep this party rolling. We got John McClain coming up in about less than 10 minutes or so here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Let's go out and talk to the Mac. The Mac from way way back. Raider Mac, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's up, Q? I'm glad y'all back, man. I'm so happy y'all back. Just listening and taking in everything you guys say and getting ready for the season, man. The season's going to be here real quick, man. You're already doing a great job as usual. Hey, Q, based on your question, you know what I'm going to say. April draft, when you pick you got a franchise quarterback. Now, you go look at that list that came out yesterday on the quarterback. Every one of those guys, the teams are top-notch, or either they played in the playoffs or they got to the Super Bowl. Even though Darnold wasn't in the top 10, but the top 15, top 20 guys. And that's why I see Mendoza in next year or the year after in the top 20 as a quarterback. And you need a franchise quarterback, man. You're not going to win in this league. I don't care. You can make all the moves in the world. There's a lot of teams make a lot of moves, and they still don't win. You know, Seattle won last year because of their defense. But, Q, I have to go with the quarterback. To me, that's the biggest thing that we haven't done in a long time. And, you know, I said it from day one. The roster and the quarterback and everything has been upgraded, man. And I appreciate you guys, and that's where I stand at, man. And we'll see what happens, man. But as far as the quarterback situation right now, we're settled and we're ready to go. We have we can look in the future to see what we have. And Mendoza, man, all his interviews, he's just a good kid, man. He's ready to play. I may be wrong, but I see him as a starter at least by next year. I'll let you guys go on that.
All right, thanks for the call, Raider Mac. It's always great to hear from you, and that's one thing I can say that you have always been consistent. I don't care what anyone says. You have been consistent with you get the quarterback, you get yourself a chance. And the Raiders got their quarterback, and so they've given themselves a chance. And, you know, I know you talked about the roster and where it was, and, you know, even going back as early as last year, right, when you were talking about the roster isn't where it needs to be. And, you know, I even thought that there was more talent on the roster than there was. And so, I stand corrected. I'm okay with that. And it seems like, again, going back to what boxes have been checked, you get the quarterback and you turn the roster around. And really, there's a point of emphasis that they made to make sure that the free agents that they brought in were not just really good players, but also young, really good players. So they weren't just guys that were trying to get an extra paycheck or one last paycheck, you know, on their last legs, but they were guys that, you know, okay, these dudes could play. These dudes are young, and they're going to be able to play for a handful of years. It's not just going out and getting the guy that was a name and might not necessarily have that game like they had at a certain level. So really good stuff, Raider Mac. It's always great to hear from you. Of course, keep that feedback coming at 702-365-9200 text line and phone line. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than other years that we felt that the team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you that confidence? Speaking of checking boxes, how about checking that box of winning? What you got, Ari?
I love that. Winning a 4-pack of tickets to see the Aviators against the El Paso Chihuahuas. That is on the 25th of July. Tickets available at Ticketmaster or be caller 9 right now with me, 702-365-9200. Must be a Nevada resident to get a 4-pack of tickets.
There it is right there. We're going to take you out to the ball game. Go check out those Aviators. Really good time out, good family event, and we got your tickets. Ari's got them. All you got to do is be caller 9, 702-365-9200. John McClain joins us next. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
Is Clint Kubiak head coaching material? I know he's from a coaching family, and I know where he's been, and I know what he did last year. Now he's in charge of a program. Look at the people there that he was standing with at his introductory press conference with the GM. Howie Long.
Everybody.
Everybody's in the Hall of Fame. Plunkett, is he there too? Gannon's there. Okay. Is he head coaching material or is he not? Is he ready for this moment or is he not? Because there's a ton of big-time decisions he's going to have to make.
It's time for our weekly visit with the Hall of Famer John McClain. Right now on Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q.
As we come in, we hear the sounds of Rich Eisen from the Rich Eisen Show. Had 4 downs on the Raiders, and one of the downs is Clint Kubiak head coach material. Obviously, that was something that we all talked about leading up to the hiring process, and now he's been the guy in charge ever since the Super Bowl got wrapped up, and so far so good. And has checked all the boxes. Again, going to the conversation that we had today, what, in your opinion, makes this year feel different than others when it talks about direction of this team? And I would say Clint Kubiak is one of those big reasons. Of course, we'll get into all things Clint Kubiak in a hot minute. We have our guy John McClain talking all things NFL. Join us now here on the phone line. And, John, thanks so much for your time. As always, I appreciate you. Before we get into what Rich had to say and Clint Kubiak, I did want to go ahead and pass my condolences on to the Houston Texans as an organization, knowing that their co-founder and senior chair, Janice McNair, passed away peacefully. What could you tell us about Mrs. McNair and how much she meant to that organization and the Houston community?
I met Janice and Bob McNair 30 years ago, right after Bud Adams moved the Oilers to Nashville, and they were the only ones who stepped up to try to get an expansion franchise for Houston. Nobody else did it. And the reason was expansion franchise with the fee and the stadium and all that was $800 million. And people were like, my God, how would anybody pay $800 million for an NFL franchise? That is definitely going to be a losing proposition. But Bob McNair did it. He had his stadium. He had the politicians. He had the business leaders. And one of the ways he and Janice were able to do that is he was a big political guy. He donated a lot of money, had the politicians behind the stadium. And those are things that you have to get done. You have to get those people on your side. He was the out front guy. Janice, a Southern Belle from South Carolina, where they met when they were in college, and they came to Houston from South Carolina with $2,000. They had nothing else. Their firstborn, a daughter, they were so poor, their crib was a drawer in a chest of drawers in a little one-bedroom, one-bath apartment they rented in Houston. And then he turned nothing into a multi-billion-dollar business in which his company, Cogent Technologies, provided most of the electricity for New York and the Northeast. He sold it to Enron before Enron collapsed for $1 billion and $370 million in cash. So he was a very shrewd businessman, and Janice was right there. He trusted her opinions. He ran everything by her. She didn't get involved in anything but philanthropy. We figured out, the McNairs have given away from $750 million to $1 billion. Because that's what they were all about. And she never raised her voice to anybody. She said, don't misconstrue my kindness for weakness, because she could make difficult decisions. She just did it very quietly, and I thought it was very cool. She had a stroke after Bob died from a long battle with skin cancer in 2018, and she had a stroke, but she was still sharp as a tack, even though she was in a wheelchair. And on his way home every day from the stadium, Cal McNair, who ran the franchise, would call his mom, tell her about practice, what went on the day, what they were going to do on personnel decisions, things that they were doing on the administrative side. So she always wanted to stay on top of things, even though she didn't force them to do something. The McNair family has always believed you hire good people, you pay them a lot of money, you give them a lot of money to do their job. If they don't do the job, you fire them and hire somebody else, and that's what a good owner is.
Well, Janice McNair, again, co-founder and senior chair, she passes away peacefully, and great words about her, and she sounds like she was fantastic. Her and Bob McNair obviously leading the charge there for the Houston Texans. Again, John McClain is with us here, Raider Nation Radio 920. So that leads us to talking about hiring good people. I believe Clint Kubiak is a really good guy to take this organization, the Raiders, into the future. You know him. You've known him since he's been a little kid. We don't know that he's going to be a successful head coach, but, John, what would lead you to believe that he will be?
Well, first of all, Rich Eisen said, is he head coaching material? Well, obviously he is and has been, because others were interested in him. Clint's been with a lot of organizations, just like his dad. He's brought up by his dad. He's a head coach now for the first time. His brother will be a head 49ers offensive coordinator, is going to be a head coach. The other one works in personnel with the Cowboys, could end up as a general manager. So Clint was ready to be an NFL head coach. How successful he is depends heavily on the operation of the franchise. If John Spytek if he makes good decisions as general manager, if Tom Brady does a better job than he did with Birmingham in soccer when he hired the wrong head coach to start, Wayne Rooney, a star and a legend, and then he fired him, and then all of a sudden they started winning. So you have to make good decisions when it comes to people around your head coach. You got to let him do his job. When Gary, his daddy, was hired, Gary is a very quiet guy, and people would say, oh, he's not tough, he's not animated, he's not demonstrative. Well, he was at practice. I saw him chew people out, cuss them out, but he did it privately. He didn't do it on the sideline during the game. Very cerebral. Clint reminds me so much of his dad, not just in the way he looks, but the way he acts, the way he coaches. And I'll guarantee you that message has gotten across. And now it's just up to Spytek and the personnel people to make sure he has good players. And like Kirk Cousins, starting with Cousins, and Mendoza at the most important position on the team.
John McClain is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. I'm glad you brought up John Spytek, and I know we've had a conversation about him before. It feels like he doesn't get enough credit, but, John, this offseason, for me just observing it, seems like that they had a plan from the very beginning, and they've gone out there and executed it. And even when the Max Crosby situation happened, it seems like it didn't really bother them too much. Have you been able to see what looks like a plan in place from the Raiders?
Absolutely, and they handled the Crosby thing as well as you could, just like Crosby handled it as well as you could. He just came back, put his head down, went to work like he always does, and I would think a rookie head coach would love to have a guy like Crosby in the locker room who not only is a great pass rusher but is great for the culture. You know, the Raiders have some really good players. They were able to overcome the Gruden-Mayock era in which they did such a poor job of drafting. And I think now, I know Gary Kubiak has great respect for Spytek because he was with the Broncos when Kubiak was the head coach and they won Super Bowl 50. And I'm sure Spytek because he knew Clint very well. And then Mark Davis. Mark Davis will become a much better owner and because stay out of it, give them the money they need for personnel, stay on top to know what's going on, but let your personnel people make their decisions. And if he does that and he doesn't keep firing coaches, that's going to make Mark Davis a terrific owner. And I think from afar, it looks like he's doing that. And by the way, I just watched the other day the 10-part documentary on the Buccaneers that came out in 25, and there was a scene in which Spytek was on his front porch and fell in the bushes and just fell off his front porch. Ask him sometime. It was funny as hell, and I think they were celebrating. And I can't remember if he'd been drinking. I don't know if he drinks or not. But it was hilarious, and they got such a big kick out of it. And I'm thinking, now he's running a franchise, and he can't stay on his front porch. But it was hilarious. So I think the Raiders are in a good position. Fans and media shouldn't get their hopes up for dramatic improvement. Gary Kubiak took over a 2-14 team, and they won 6 games, and everybody was ready to give him a contract extension because expectations were so low. And then in the second year, they really took off. So what you want to see is improvement. You want to know the team is headed in the right direction. And the way you see that is what you know about them off the field, what you see them on the field, and what they've done in personnel and with the coaching staff.
What do you think the fine line is, or where is the fine line in when you play a veteran quarterback as opposed to when you play the rookie quarterback?
Well, that depends on if you think the rookie quarterback can handle it. And it's not just him physically and mentally. And I think we know Mendoza can handle it physically and mentally because we saw him take some cheap shots last year. We saw people teeing off on him. I haven't seen many prospects more impressive than Fernando Mendoza. I started watching him, keeping up with him. I watched the Heisman. I watched the draft. The guy is almost too good to be true. But he's fortunate to have Kirk Cousins. Clint Kubiak knows Kirk very well from Minnesota. That's kind of a match made in heaven, and Kirk understands what his role is. The fact is, if you're losing a bunch of games, that's not when you do it. That's not the way Tom Brady did it, and Tom Brady turned out okay. There's a lot of great quarterbacks that didn't start right away because usually they're with a bad team. And the year that Brady did not start, the Patriots were terrible. A lot of people said, get rid of this Belichick. He's no better here than he was when he was in Cleveland. And then the biggest what if, I get interviewed sometimes on national shows. Let's talk about some what ifs in NFL history. And my what if is Lewis had not hit Bledsoe on the sideline and knocked him out. What if? What would have happened to Tom Brady? Bledsoe was a top quarterback, former number 1 pick overall, team leader. Everybody loved him. Ted Johnson, who was on that team for 5 years before this happened, said that Bledsoe was definitely their team leader. And when he stuck with Brady, that they were all shocked. But it turned out to be maybe the greatest decision in NFL history. And I'll tell you one more thing, Q. I just got invited to be part of a panel at Sports Illustrated. Wow. I've done this with them before. They're picking the best 20 quarterbacks in history and the 10 best teams in history. And Brady, to me, is the greatest quarterback and greatest player in NFL history based on what he achieved. And people kind of forget what he did in Tampa. Won another Super Bowl, came close the second year. And so, to me, he is the greatest player in NFL history. And I don't know how anybody can claim somebody else was better than Brady.
I'm with you. And that's very impressive what he was able to do going from New England to Tampa Bay. I didn't think he had it still in him. I didn't think he was that guy. Shame on me. But he clearly proved to me and everyone else that he was, John. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. He proved us all to be wrong if we had any kind of doubt on who he could be. Well, fantastic stuff as always, John. What do you got cooking? What are you working on that we should be on the lookout for?
I'm in the parking lot of a church where we're showing a screening of our documentary, nice. The PVIL story separate but equal. And because Janice McNair died, I've been getting all kind of radio requests, and I'm trying to accommodate all radio and TV.
Well, hey, I know that if there's one guy to call, it would be you, and you'll be able to hold it down. Thanks as much as always, John. We definitely appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Q.
Absolutely. Great stuff as always. John McClain, the general right there, talking all things NFL and really just leaning into the conversation that we've been having and basing it off of what Rich Eisen said about is Kubiak head coach material. And I think John hit it on the head. There's no doubt he's head coach material. How will he handle the ups and the downs of an NFL season? Obviously, that's still, to be determined. You can't put the cart before the horse. But, if I have some confidence in somebody, I'm going to have some confidence in Clint Kubiak based off what I've seen, what I've heard, and what others have told us about the new head coach for the Silver and Black. But we hear from you as we close out hour number 2 of the show just like that, 702-365-9200. What, in your opinion, makes this year feel different than others years that we thought that the team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you that confidence? It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
Man, Quay, he's just bringing another little intensity. It's kind of cliche, but you need another dog out there to where, I know for a fact, no matter what he say, it may be good or bad, I know it's coming out of love. I know that you're doing everything that you want me to do just to push me and all that stuff, to help me be a better person, to help me be a better leader. Because, man, again, I done seen Quay since his freshman year. It was my locker, somebody else's locker, and then Quay. So I've done seen Quay grow up from his freshman year and all this stuff. So just being able to, so I know some of the things that he say and all this stuff, we can go ahead and go back and forth. It's just all love.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
Remember there was a time when the Raiders had all the Clemson Tigers on their team? Now they got all the Georgia Bulldogs on their team. From Eric Stokes to Quay Walker, who he was just talking about, to Nakobe Dean, all this guy named Brock Bowers. You may have heard of him, kind of good, right? They got the Georgia Bulldog squad. And then, of course, they had Zamir White last year. He's not with the Raiders now. I mean, he's a free agent, but, man, they had Zamir last year. That's another Georgia Bulldog. So, hey, look, that happens. When you're a collegiate team that is consistently putting pros, guys into the league, that's going to happen. So right now the Raiders are representing with a lot of the Georgia Bulldogs, and you just heard Eric Stokes talking about Quay Walker. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Coming up at the top of the hour, Sam Gordon from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He'll join us to talk all things silver and black. His expectations a few weeks out from the start of training camp, where he'll be at each and every day. We've got our training camp schedule on our email today. We got our credential requests on our email today, and that's when you know, uh-oh, hope you got your vacation in. Looks like trouble. Looks like the football season is right around the corner. So we'll talk to Sam Gordon in a hot minute. We did throw the question out there to you. What, in your opinion, makes this year feel different than other years, that we felt that this team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you that confidence? Let's go out to the phone lines real quick and talk to the money man. Money Mitch, what you got for me? Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Q, how you doing, Ari? What's popping?
Chilling, man.
First, Raiders have plenty of UFC guys. And I know it's been a while. This is a coincidence, okay? I got a good story for you before I get into my points. DMV. Geez, I don't know how many times I gave this girl like extra work. I must have filled the application 2 or 3 times. No need to put a D, I put my street by the city. And then when I fill out, I forgot to put my birthday, my weight, my height. And then here's another one, and this is the clincher. She didn't like me putting dark brown eyes, you know. I mean, I couldn't just have you vouch for me. I mean, how many short Colombian, half Russian UFC Raiders Dodger guys are there in this country? No, we don't have dark. We don't have light brown. Dark brown is either black, brown, blue, or gray. What about hazel? No. Stick to the subject here, okay?
Real quick, Mitch. So you're telling me what I learned from this conversation that you just had with me is that you fill out applications or you fill out paperwork the same way you call into the radio station and just kind of all over the place. All of it ties together.
Was that it? Oh, I just felt something. I just felt something hit me behind the head pretty hard. But I'm still standing. Still standing, my brother. I guess I just get a little nervous because you had to have a Social Security card, your original birth certificate. My sister-in-law had to go back because she's been divorced now for like 10 years or more, maybe. The Social Security card had 2 different last names. No, I gotta go back. And my brother-in-law, who's going to be 69, the fellow says to him, "This is too old." What do you expect it to be? It's the original. It's going to get older. It gets older as we speak. I understand these people. You know?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Hey, I understand that sentiment. Don't understand these people. I get that. Hey, look, that runs through my mind all the time, brother.
I love that all right, now I'll get to my sports one. I got one for your mom.
Thanks.
We got running backs, and we got a quarterback. And thank God he could have gone back for another year or two. Maybe we win 3 Heisman's in a row. A Pac-12 quarterback, and don't you forget that. And one more thing for Kill, I hope she likes Zara Williams. I think we could still pull the Johnny Kuminga tray. I'm thinking Dalton Connect, and we'll throw in Bronny.
Yeah, everyone will throw in Bronny. Hey, thanks for the call, buddy, Mitch. Appreciate you. My man just called to vent about the DMV. That's what I learned there in this lesson is that he just called to vent about the DMV. Just when Will hit us on the text line, said, ring the bell on Money Mitch. So sometimes that has to happen. But, man, my man was not happy. Look, who hasn't had a bad experience at the DMV? But like I said, what I learned is that the way that Mitch fills out paperwork is the same way he engages us here on the show. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. We do have Sam Gordon for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He'll come up at the top of the hour. We also have to do Football Right coming up in the next hour, and we've got plenty of feedback on the text line as well. Lots of really good feedback from the conversation that we've had this afternoon, and I do appreciate that at 702-365-9200. Sam Gordon, he kicks off hour number 3. We'll do that next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Uzan, short corner 3. Ramon Walker Jr. Uzan takes the 3 and hits. On the loose ball, DeVries for 3. 9-0 Celtics run.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
As we come into hour number 3 of the show, we come into our guy Uzan with his 3-pointers. Houston college basketball there on the credits. And, of course, he's playing in some summer league action with the Boston Celtics. He is a Las Vegas native, and someone who wrote a really good piece in the Las Vegas Review-Journal about Uzan is our guy Sam Gordon from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and he kicks us off here, hour number 3 of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920. Sam, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you. You put in the article that Uzan used to go to Summer League. Now he's playing in it. How special is it for that young man, a Las Vegas native, to now be fulfilling his dream and his goals of making it to the NBA?
Well, first and foremost, Q, appreciate you having me. Always a pleasure to be on the show. It was great catching up with him. It was absolutely great catching up with him. And look, he believes he's an NBA player. You could just tell from our conversation. He wasn't, certainly grateful for the opportunity with the Boston Celtics and whatnot. With the E10 contract, he's going to have an opportunity to get in their program, get out there training camp, get into their program and do what he does. But, you take a look at the pedigree that he had in college, a 4-year starter, played in the national championship game with Houston. He has the prototypical size at the point guard spot. He's 6'4", makes great decisions with the ball. His dad was his coach at Desert Pines before he went to Prolific Prep. So he believed he should have been drafted. But nonetheless, he feels like he's in a great situation now with the Celtics. He liked how that workout went with them this spring, and is in a situation now, again, where he's going to get in their program. They've done well developing undrafted players over there. You take a look at Ron Harper Jr., for instance, who they just signed to an extension. They do a great job with developing guards, and they have a plan in place for him. So he's excited about that, and to your point, certainly excited to be back in his hometown playing basketball, getting everything going at Summer League after 6 years now, right? You count the 2 that in prep school that he did, 2 at Oklahoma, 2 in Houston. It's been 6 years since he played ball on a competitive level in Vegas, so he's happy to be back for Summer League for sure.
So I've been to Summer League for a couple days already. JT's done his show out there. Our sister station, ESPN Las Vegas, Cofield and Company, has been out there multiple times. You've been out there. What has it felt like as far as just the atmosphere, the way that it's grown over the years to what you've been able to see this your run around from the Summer League?
It's been great. It's been great. I know, this is the depth of the draft class, I think, this year certainly helps. But I was catching up with, I caught up yesterday with Summer League co-founder Warren McGarry, who's, also a prominent agent for coaches and executives, and just kind of, gauging his perspective on basketball in Las Vegas and the growth of Summer League. And he was pleased with the turnouts, with the level of basketball that was being played, very understanding, right? You're not coming to necessarily an NBA game. You're coming to a Summer League game, but they want to provide an NBA experience. And you're in there, you're seeing all the executives, you're seeing superstar players pass through. It feels like an event. It feels like a real NBA experience. So, he had mentioned to me that 2 of the first 4 nights they got, record gates on relative to those days of the weekend. You talk about this draft class, right? AJ Divancia, Darren Peterson, who didn't play yesterday but played earlier this week. Caleb Wilson, who was sensational again last night with the Chicago Bulls. Cameron Boozer to Memphis, and so on and so forth. So, they knew there was some anticipation, right, from the Summer League, executives and personnel that this was going to be, maybe a bigger one than normal because of how deep this draft class was, say, compared to that of maybe 2 years ago when Zachary Riche was the number 1 overall pick. And so far, right, there's always kind of a natural, there's a decrescendo, right, after that first initial weekend. But those first 4 or 5 days were absolutely, energy filled, and the basketball has been delivering and the atmosphere has been delivering.
As a matter of fact, the Grizzlies and Warriors are tipping off right now. You just mentioned Cameron Boozer. Obviously, he's the big-time pickup for the Memphis Grizzlies, so that's tipping off right now. And Sam, how important for the NBA to be here in Las Vegas is the Summer League? With it being, kind of the early showcase, we know that Adam Silver is going to speak tonight a little bit later on to talk about the NBA and the possibility of it getting an expansion team. But how much is just kind of them being successful with these Summer League showcases? Is that going to help the Las Vegas and land their organization, I should say?
I think it's been huge, right? They were, really. They've had a prominent footprint here, or the Summer League has made sure the NBA has had a prominent footprint here since 2004, right? And you go back, especially with the advancements this last I don't know, decade plus, getting all 30 teams out here, now having it, or having it for several years, but having two arenas going side by side, UNLV and Cox Pavilion, and Summer League really being, kind of the meeting ground for the league at large. Yeah, there's no question that the Summer League having an early foothold before pro sports were here, before it was in vogue to build off the Nevada market, like it's showed how basketball can bring people together in Las Vegas, and it showed the merit of having an NBA kind of tentpole event. So I think it's hard to directly quantify its impact, but the bottom line is it's done big business here. There's a reason they keep bringing it back. It's done big business here. And, again, going back to those opening weekends, when you have a marquee star player in town like that, the Thomas and Mack Center is filled like it used to be for the Rebels back in their heyday, right? So their consistency, their ability to grow the product, to grow Summer League into what it's become, really a basketball extravaganza, more or less, if you're a basketball fan coming from out of town, like that has ensured that the NBA has had a real foothold here. The NBA surely has seen the success of the Golden Knights. They've seen the Raiders come here and see the live gates that that Allegiant Stadium is producing, and what that's done, business wise for that organization. It makes all the sense in the world for a franchise to come here and Summer League were the seeds that kind of got that idea going.
Sam Gordon from the Las Vegas Review-Journal is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920 Unnecessary Roughness. And you've covered so many different athletes from so many different sports that are Las Vegas natives. What has the now professional scene that we have here in droves, from women's basketball to hockey to football? Obviously, NBA could be on the way. We know baseball's on the way. Like, how has that helped the youth in this area feel like, hey, yeah, I can make it to the next level? And we see plenty of it represented right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge, right? I mean, there was professional athletes coming out of Vegas before there were teams, but now it's tangible. Yep. Now you can touch it, right? You mentioned the Aces, right? 3 championships in the last 4 years, vying for a 4th this year. They're right there in that mix. The Raiders, you have with their community outreach and everything they do, they're present in the community, and the Golden Knights, kind of in and of themselves, the way they captured this market and took everything over, starting in 2017, and the success that they've had the last decade. You obviously see Major League Baseball wanting to get establishing its footprint here on the Strip, and Vegas has long been a hub for great baseball players, going back to Greg Maddux and whatnot, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, with having all the pro franchises here, with having the success being modeled, the infrastructure, the resources, the facilities now that are in place all over town for these different activities, like, there's no question about it. Las Vegas is growing in real time rapidly and becoming a major sports hub. I mean, it's going to be a 5 franchise. It's tracking that way, right? With an NBA expansion team, you're talking about 5 professional franchises here in what, a decade plus or so, getting established here and whatnot. Like, that's, there's not many markets in the country that have all the pro sports, and Vegas is heading that way. So you would expect, as the city grows, as pro sports continue to grow here, that you're going to continue to see, great pro athletes on all different sports come out of Las Vegas and emerge and represent the next generation.
Sam Gordon is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. You also cover the fight scene like a glove, so I have to ask.
Yeah.
What happened on Saturday with Conor McGregor? If anyone knows, it's you.
Oh, man. Q, he was out of the cage for 5 years. I mean, that's a long time. And in his last major fight, right, 2021, he broke his leg and was, destroyed for all intents and purposes by Dustin Poirier. Like, that was a one-sided fight. And, activity is so important in fighting in combat sports, right? You have a couple fights a year. I mean, boxing, certainly it used to be, a lot more in the sports heyday. The top guys fought 3-4 times a year. But if you have multiple fights scheduled, that means you're in training camp. That's multiple training camps. That's 8-12 weeks where you're locked in, where you're disciplined, where you are eating your food and nutrition and cardio, and all those things are A1. And as we know, right, with McGregor being out of the cage for 5 years and certainly not living the cleanest of lifestyles, he was very transparent about that during the promotion, during media day, UFC media day the other day, about the toll alcohol has taken on his life. So you just combine all the multitude of factors you have to factor in the 2017, windfall, right, from the Floyd Mayweather fight. I mean, that was, I think he made $100+ million from that fight. Like, it's as Marvin Hagler once said, it's hard to get up at 5 a.m. and do road work when you're sleeping in silk sheets. So I think just the confluence, all those factors, the inactivity, the wear and tear he's taken throughout the course of his career, the drinking, just not having fight scheduled, not being in camp. He's 38 now, and you try and do things that you're used to doing at 28, and with all that time out of the ring, like he pulled the trigger for a move that he's probably done hundreds of times throughout the course of his career, and it just didn't go the way he wanted it to. And certainly a letdown, certainly a buzzkill. That arena was absolutely jam-packed. Every time Conor McGregor walks out, you get the kind of the Irish hymn that transitions into Hypnotized by Biggie. There's no harder drop in hip-hop than that. The arena was rocking. It was ready to go. Everybody's standing on their feet. And within 5 to 10 seconds, something's wrong. So this is what happens. I mean, he got to the peak level, the pinnacle of sport by having an unmitigated discipline and almost desperation. In combat sports, like in any sport, you reach the absolute pinnacle. It's through like a sheer focus that we as journalists do our best to try and quantify, and yet still it's really hard. And you have to maintain that in order to age as gracefully as the LeBron Jameses, the Steph Currys, the Tom Brady's of the world do. And so, yeah, it was obviously not a great showing for Conor McGregor. He's vowed on social media that he's going to return, but given the inactivity, given that he's won one fight in the last decade, like, how will Conor McGregor sell in 2027 at 39, coming off an ACL injury, having won one fight since 2016? Like, I think it's going to be a tough sell, and father time and lifestyle decisions outside of the cage have caught up to him.
There's no doubt. It's a great breakdown right there from Sam Gordon from the Las Vegas Review-Journal here on RaiderNation Radio 920. So we'll close out with this. We got our training camp scheduled today in the email from the Silver and Black. You're back just in time. You know what it's like being out there for training camp each and every day, seeing how the team is built. I started off the show saying it feels different this year with the people that are in place, the players that are there, but it's done that before. It's felt different before. Sam, why is it going to be any different, or why does it feel different than what it has in the past, if it feels different to you at all?
It does feel different to me, and it feels, and again, this could be very anecdotal. This is just a small snapshot. We're going to actually see how it plays out on the grass, not only in training camp, but throughout the course of the season, and then the next couple of seasons moving forward. And that to me, Q, that's what feels different, is you have a plan. You have a coach and GM that feel like they're on the same page. There isn't kind of this rush to put a Band-Aid over a deep festered wound and just try and get through. No, they rip the Band-Aid off and understand. It seems to be an understanding that this is a kind of a full-scale rebuild, and there's a lot of youth in the building. There's a head coach in place that just was part of a Super Bowl winning program. That was the offensive coordinator that dialed up a scheme against the Los Angeles Rams that helped Sam Darnold outplay Matt Stafford, and then lo and behold, the following week, dialed up that run game against the New England Patriots and schemed them up and two huge wins. So he comes from the Super Bowl program. He has that pedigree. You have the Fernando Mendoza in place, whether he starts week 1, week 9, week 18, week 17, week 1 of next season, there is a number 1 pick quarterback in the building here to work with a head coach that just won the Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks with lots of youth around them. So that's why it feels different, right? That to me is why it feels different. That doesn't mean this is going to be a 12-5 football team. Far from it. There's still, I think, a lot of holes on the roster and a lot of development that needs to happen, big picture. But that's okay for where this team is at right now. They have they have who they believe to be is a very promising young head coach. They have who they hope to be as their franchise quarterback in place, and they have a plan to develop young talent, to not rush Fernando Mendoza out on that football field, to make sure he's ready with the veteran Kirk Cousins in place. And lo and behold, in a few weeks, they're going to go out there, put the pads on, and see what happens. Clint Kubiak was very clear. What happens in OTAs, the development, all that stuff is great. It's going to look a little different when the pads come on. So I know, Q, I'm definitely excited to get out there and to see if this energy aligns with what we feel and to see if it does feel different and if it's a different end of the season. But all things considered, just given how many regimes this franchise has been through, what the last 2 or 3 seasons have looked like, in particular, the instability, or I guess you could call it stability. It's just been stability. They've been stably at the bottom of the league, however you want to term it. It feels right now like there is alignment in the front office and on the field, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
I think that was perfectly well said, man. It really was. Great breakdown. And I talked about earlier in the show the plan as well, and it feels like the plan is really clear of the way that they went approaching and attacking this offseason. Well, Sam, great stuff as always, my man. We didn't talk Summer League. We didn't talk the fight game. We didn't talk the Raiders. You got it covered, man, like you always do. What are you working on that we should be on the lookout for?
Appreciate you, Q. I'm going to be out there at Summer League the rest of the week as well tomorrow, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then, quick turnaround. We're going to get into some Raiders preview stuff with training camp right around the corner a couple weeks away. So I can't wait to get into all that. Looking forward to seeing you out there in Henderson, and great to be on the program, enjoying Summer League, enjoying everything summertime in Las Vegas has to offer, and I'm very much excited for football this fall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great stuff as always, Sam. Thanks so much. I'll see you soon. You know that.
Appreciate you, Q.
Yes, sir. Great stuff. Sam Gordon, Las Vegas Review-Journal. Glad to have him back. He went off to the Bay and was covering the Warriors and did a fantastic job, but really glad to have Sam back. As you could tell, Swiss Army knife can cover just about anything, right? From the hoop game to the fight game to obviously the NFL and everything else that Las Vegas has to offer. A really good asset for us here on Raider Nation Radio 920 and just for the Las Vegas community in general. Really good stuff from him. And, of course, we've got some really good stuff from you that we've been receiving all afternoon on the text line and the phone line at 702-365-9200. What, in your opinion, makes this year different than other years that we felt that the team was moving in the right direction? What box has been checked to give you that confidence? And I love that Sam mentioned the plan. That's something that we referenced at the very beginning of the show. The plan has been so clear from day one, where we're not trying to look through muddy waters, right? It almost feels like, and I don't mean to keep referencing vacation, but it almost feels like when we're on vacation and, I don't swim. I talk about it all the time, but I don't mind snorkeling in Hawaii. You know why? The water's clear. I can see the bottom. I see what's underneath me, right? You go out to the lake and try to look down and see what you see. You see brown. Right, you see a lot of dirty water. No disrespect to the lake, but you don't see clearly through the waters. You don't see the animals, the fish that are in there, the turtles that may be in there, whatever it is that may be under there. We saw there's people that were identifying octopus. Now, it took me a while to see it because that damn thing is hard to identify. But, man, once you finally locate it, you're like, oh, yeah, it's right there. You can see clear. That's how it feels with what the Raiders have done this offseason. The path has been clear. It's like snorkeling in Hawaii. You can clearly identify what's below you, what's going on around you, as opposed to ducking your head into some water and all you see is brown water. And you don't know what the hell's going on. You don't know if you're walking on rocks. You don't know what's happening. You can see clearly. That's what this plan has felt like that the Raiders have put together this offseason. Now, how often are you going to get a Raider offseason compared to snorkeling in Hawaii? I'm just saying. Ari, now that was tying some things together like some shoestrings right there, brother.
Yes. Any other year it might be in a totally different metaphor or analogy, but this year, let's go.
Exactly. We could talk about other years where the plan may have been looking through water, but it wasn't snorkeling water. It might have been some other dirty water. Matter of fact, moonlight plumbing might have needed to be called to flush it, if you know what I'm talking about. Right?
Yep. I'm trying
to tell you, they ain't too. I don't like to flex too much, but that was a flex.
Someone might have needed what do they call that? A life jacket.
Exactly. You might have needed to call in Moonlight Plumbing because you done tried to flush multiple times, and, well, it just ain't going down, if you know what I mean. Right? You done got the plunger out multiple times, boom, 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 trying to get that. It ain't going down. At some point, you got to make the call.
That would be right around, February 7th or 15th this year. But no.
14th.
Or there you go.
14th is the Super Bowl.
But we don't have to. But hopefully we won't have to worry about that. We'll have a productive.
It's a good point.
And here's why.
That was fun right there. Shout out to Moonlight Plumbing, one of our proud sponsors that we have here, not only on Unnecessary Roughness, but in Raider Nation Radio 920 in general. One of the great callers that we have is Bernard. Bernard, welcome to the show. What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, Q, how you guys doing, man?
Man, we're good. Having a little bit of fun this afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, you always say some stuff, man, that just be having me cracking up. That I think everybody be thinking the same thing. I can't call it all the time, but, man, you just be having me laughing or smiling about something. It's just funny as heck. But, Q, I think a lot of us are saying kind of the same thing with, like Sam was just saying. My thing is they really seem like they really have a structure and a philosophy. You know, it's kind of set. How many times have we seen the Raiders, you know, I think Caller said it before, like we'll get a player – he played in zone. We sign him as a free agent or draft him, but we playing man. Or are they playing man? You know, just like they always try to fit a square peg in a round hole. But now it really seems like they got a structure and a philosophy. And it was funny what you were saying about Vinny. Like he's like, and I think Jones is on that saying the same thing. The receiver that played with the Raiders, that played for us, and then he played with Green Bay, James Jones.
Oh,
he
yeah.
said the same thing. Throw him in there. And then Amber, Theo Harris, is like, I think she's kind of on that same tip too. But I think Kubiak isn't going to be swayed. I mean, he said it even before he got the Raiders job. Like, I'd rather, a rookie quarterback, sit a little bit before we start him. So I think he's gonna stick to his guns. And if he feels Fernando is ready, then he'll play. If he's not, I think Kirk Cousins is basically the perfect guy to have. And he got pieces that. He's already been in the offense. You got the Naylor. He's already been in the offense, so you can see what he's doing. So I think it's going to be a good transition. And then with him being the number one pick, I think that's where you got to play now. Let him play when he's ready. And then one more quick thing, Q, the dry fit socks. Man, I thought my daughter was taking my socks, brother. I was like, he washed your clothes. I'm like, man, is this girl taking my socks? I'm like, you got my socks. Dad, I don't got your socks. I'm like, I wear a size 11.5. How I got these socks that look like they like an 8? But anyway, she's like, no. I looked at it and I paid attention to you saying. I think it was yesterday. Yep. Man, they running a little scheme or something. Man, I'm like, I know I bought the right size. What's going on with these socks? And another thing, when I go grocery shop with my wife, she's like, go get this, go get that. I go get it, and she take it out my hand and put it back. Don't grab the one from the front, fool. Grab the one in the back.
See? I mean, hey, look, I be knowing, man. I be knowing.
Man, Q, you be on it, man. You just be having me cracking up. Keep up the good work. Training camp is on its way, and positive things is coming as always, man. Raider fans going to always stay positive. Take it easy. Talk to you later.
Hey, great call as always, Bernard. It's good to hear from you. And see, I'm telling you, man, people be thinking I just be talking sometimes. They're like, oh, Q just talking, he's just talking. But really, I know what I'm talking about. I just have fun while I say it, but yeah, man, you always have to buy the item from behind, right? Because that's always the fresher item. You always buy from the behind, not from the front. The front is the one that we're trying to push out sooner rather than later, right? That even happened when I worked in the meat department. I always put the fresh package on the bottom, right? And then had the stuff that I was trying to push, I tried to put that on top. So, and sometimes we'd even give you a discount that day because it was special. You know why? Because it's about to go bad. It's about to become hamburger. So, yeah, I want to sell that steak a little bit early because if not, it's going to end up becoming hamburger, and I'm going to end up grinding it up and selling it to you the next day. So, yeah, that's real. I'm glad you could appreciate the dry fit education. That is Ari, that is some real stuff. I know you might not understand, but, look, I'll tell you right now, the wife won't even fold my socks anymore. Right? She won't even fold them anymore. She'll just leave them in a pile like, here, you go and do what you do. Because I promise you, if you get the dry fit in this very small stitch, it is different than the other sock. Even though they appear to the naked eye to be the same sock, they are not. So when you go and put them on, and all of a sudden one goes up your ankle just a little bit above your ankle bone, and then the other one just happens to ride a little bit under, you're like, how did that happen? Well, go back and look at the print. Look right there on the toes where it says dry fit. If you got the itsy bitsy small little dry fit, that's why. You got to find the one that matches. But that's what Nike does. As much as I love Nike, and I do, trust and believe that, they are so smart. They'll have a blue that's not this normal color blue. Like you can't just get midnight blue because it's not that. It'll be Jordan blue or something else blue. Like they have a color you've never heard of. So when you try to mix and match, like I have some Nike shorts that are dark blue with the white Nike swoosh. Well, that doesn't match with my Jordan dark blue shirt because the Jordan blue is different than the Nike blue. And I'm telling you, man, they're so smart because it makes you buy multiple different items. I got, no joke, I got like a pullover that's a sleeveless pullover, but it's a hoodie, and that color appeared to be one way when I got it. And so I said, oh, these shorts, they match, and they're Jordan, so they all have to match. When I got them in person, they weren't the same exact color. One was one shade of, I'll just say, call it gray, and the other one was a different shade. And, oh, by the way, the Jordan swoosh was 2 different colors. One was black and one was white, which means what? You've got to go and buy the other ones to match. So they know what they're doing. They're smarter than we are. Man. And I'm so dumb that I go back and keep buying it. So joke's on me, right? They know exactly what they're doing for people that are dumb, right, just like me.
I was going to say, like, they didn't offer you, like, oh, Mr. Myers, we see you buy a lot of stuff here. And,
no.
Oh, that's on us. You know what? We made the mistake. We'll switch it out for you.
No, because it's not a mistake.
Right, yeah.
They know exactly
correct,
what they're doing.
Well, we
That's
do
how
have
they
this
get
other
you to
one.
buy extra. That's exactly
not on
how
sale
they
at all,
get.
but
Exactly. Oh, that's the other hustle that Nike always has. And I'm sure other brands do. I just happen to buy Nike. But the other hustle is on the app, it'll say, still thinking about those Air Max 270s?
Oh.
Price cut. Right? They'll say that. Or, oh, you got that pair of shoes, but this one's in a different color. I think you'll enjoy it. And so, of course, curiosity gets me. I'm like, well, let me see what color they're talking about. And then, more times than not, I'll say, nah, that's not really the one I want. I say more times than not.
Yep,
but
of course.
I think you can look at my closet and say, I don't know how many more times you said no.
Man. They know what
but it's a great
doing.
hustle. It's a great hustle. Like, they know what they're
it.
doing. They know what
really
they're doing.
do.
I actually had this argument the other night. It wasn't even an argument. It was just it was made really a statement. I understand that there's so many different brands of shoes or so many different brands that are really good, right? Some people could appreciate Adidas. Some people could appreciate Reebok. There's New Balance. There's all these Under Armour, right? There's all these great brands. But let's just be real about it. Outside of a few things here and there, like Nike is just the upper echelon. And they know that. And that's why they flex their muscles the way they do. Again, there's some people that prefer everything that Reebok does over anything that Nike does. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, the tiers, there's no competition.
Yeah, I agree. And
that's why they do what they do. And that's why they get a sucker like me every day. When Little Q went from Western Oregon to Portland State, you know how happy I was about that? You know why? Because Portland State was a Nike school.
I knew it.
Western Oregon was not.
I knew that was coming. Sure, we'll move there. Why not?
And he's
is
an
he going
Adidas
to play?
guy.
I don't care.
Right, and he's an Adidas guy. He'll be the first one to tell you, Dad, I prefer Adidas. I'm like, well, you can't be perfect.
Hey,
right?
man, he's an individual. I respect that because
you're a good kid, but your taste of shoes is trash.
I like that. He's carving out his own individuality. Because one would think.
Exactly.
Yeah, one would think you'd be on him for his entire childhood to the point like the Raiders, like you always say. Like, I mean, you can go pick another team. I can go have other kids.
Yeah, exactly. The only option he didn't have when he was a kid is he couldn't get LeBrons. I was not, as long as I was paying for him, I was not buying those shoes. Right? Hey. So you can get other shoes.
Now he can.
You couldn't get those. Yeah, you can go get your own, whatever you want.
That's right. I'm saying props to him.
My brother. You got to get your own. But that's, so there you go. That's my TED Talk for the day. But it's facts. It's factual.
Checks in the mail, Q.
That I'm making up. Nah, hey, they don't even need to give me no love because they know I'm already in. They're like, oh, we got him. We got,
Check's coming right back to us.
Exactly. Whatever we send him, he going to send it right back. 702-365-9200. We want to hear from you. We'll do that next. Plus, we'll do football right here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Fernando, he playing right now. He's starting over Kirk Cousins? He's right now. I'm putting him out there. He don't need marination. He needs to go play. Would you be afraid that it might hurt him too early, Cole? We picked the wrong guy. When you pick a quarterback, the first thing you realize you pick he better be mentally tough guy. Regardless if you play him his first year, second year, you got to be tough to play this position. Mentally tough. You have to have that. Look, they've done their homework on this guy. And for me, look, if you're a Raider fan, he gives you hope.
Right now, we're doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
That's the old coach right there, Herm Edwards on Good Morning Football. That actually goes back all the way to 5/18. That would be May 18th when he went back and said Fernando Mendoza plays right now. And you hear him say, you got to have mental toughness and you got to be tough to play that position. I don't think there's any question that Fernando Mendoza has the mental toughness. I don't think there's any question that Fernando Mendoza is a tough dude. And honestly, I don't think if the Raiders didn't have any option, there'd be any problem with him going out there day one. The thing about it is, and what I think is the beauty of this situation, is they do have options, and they don't have to force him out there if they feel like the team is not ready for Fernando Mendoza. But obviously that is a continuing conversation that we're going to not only have leading up to training camp, we'll have it throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, and into the regular season. It's Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Many people have opinions as we do football right. You heard Herm Edwards' opinion right there. Well, how about another former head football coach, and that would be Doug Peterson, who was on CBS, and he was talking about Fernando Mendoza.
I want to talk about this quarterback situation even more so with you because, you know, we talked about 2016, 2017 with the Eagles and Carson Wentz, and that was someone that you let play, that did play right away. What is the benefit to that in your eyes versus learning behind a guy like Kirk Cousins? Where do you stand on that situation?
Yeah, it was interesting because in 2016, Sam Bradford was still on our roster in Philadelphia, and we ended up trading him to Minnesota that year. I brought in Chase Daniel, a veteran who I coached in Kansas City when I was the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, to be behind Carson Wentz. And we went into that season, when I say we, myself, you know, Howie Roseman, the offensive staff, Frank Reich was there with me, saying, listen, let's get this guy out there. Again, this is to your point. Let's get this guy out there week one. Let's start having our growing pains week one. Let's not prolong it into October, November, or later in the season when maybe the season's over. Let's get him out there now. Let's get him working with the guys that he's going to be working with, right? Making the calls at the offensive line, getting Ashton Genty the ball. I think Clint Kubiak's system is going to allow for that, you know, with the play action pass, the run game, all these things that helped Seattle win a championship last year. But let's get Fernando on the field. I think it's very beneficial. I remember having a conversation with Coach McDermott when he drafted Josh Allen, and he called me, and he says, Doug, what do you think? Well, how did you handle Carson Wentz? And I said, if you think that Josh Allen is your guy, you need to get him out there week one. And he did that. He got him out there week one. There were a lot of growing pains in that first year and maybe those first couple of years. But you know what? They weathered that storm, and now look where Buffalo is. So I think you put him on the field day one. I think Kirk Cousins is a solid number two that you can rely on at any particular time. And I think he's a great mentor, for Fernando. So I think this is a win-win, I think, at quarterback, for the Raiders.
So there was Doug Peterson right there talking about Fernando Mendoza and really referencing just go ahead and throw him out there, right? He's the number one overall pick, make it happen, and you heard him reference Carson Wentz multiple times. Now, the one thing I'll say, and again, there's no right or wrong answer to this question, and obviously the decision will be made by Clint Kubiak and company when they feel like it has revealed itself. But they decided to trade Sam Bradford. They traded him to Minnesota. Why? Because Teddy Bridgewater had a really bad injury, so Minnesota was desperate. So they wanted to get their quarterback because they had playoff implications. They had playoff aspirations. They believed that quarterback was going to put them where they needed to be. So they went out and made the move. Now, if a team comes calling for Kirk Cousins in a similar situation like that, maybe that changes the conversation. Maybe that speeds up the process a little bit. But right now, the Raiders have options, and they put and made Kirk Cousins not a priority. They didn't sign him right away in free agency, but he arrived with the Raiders. They wanted to sign a veteran, so they didn't have to force Mendoza out there. So they did have options. And look, you don't have to sit there and give Kirk Cousins all the flowers in the world, but he's better than Chase Daniels. I think we could all agree with that. He's had more run in the league than Chase Daniels ever did, right? And I have a lot of respect for Chase. I think his film breakdown is really good. He's clearly a smart, football mind, but he was never in the same position that Kirk Cousins was in. Kirk Cousins has been a starting quarterback in the league for a long time for multiple reasons, right? So, again, I don't call it apples to apples. And remember, Sean McDermott, as you heard Doug Peterson reference him, Sean McDermott is a what? Defensive-minded coach. So he reached out to an offensive-minded coach in Doug Peterson to get his opinion. Again, not saying that there's a certain way that it has to go, just wanted to make sure we throw all the facts on the table and don't just make it a one-slanted type argument and tie the testimony, right? Like if we're on Law & Order SVU, I want to make sure that all the facts are out there, right? The team that collected all the facts, Ice-T was out there grinding, So we got to bring all the facts to the table. And so that's just a couple references that you heard there from Doug Peterson. Now, we also had another point of view in this conversation. And, again, there's so many of them. Lindsay Rhodes, SumerSports.com. She was on the show on yesterday, and she started talking about Kirk Cousins and said, well, we don't know when the Raiders are going to feel comfortable with transitioning. So, of course, I threw her that same question about, well, what do you think about the move to make from Kirk Cousins to Fernando Mendoza? Do you think that they pivot to Mendoza early, later? Do you think it just kind of will reveal itself when it reveals itself?
I think because the buy is such a late buy, then I think I am less certain. Like if they had a buy in week 5,
right,
I would feel comfortable pinpointing that and just saying just go there. But since it's not until later in the season, I think that just makes it more confusing to me. Right. I think in a perfect world, they should be trying to get Fernando Mendoza as many reps as they can this year if they feel comfortable doing so. If the offensive line is playing well and they get into a rhythm of chemistry, chemistry is going to be important this year in that particular scheme. I mean, it always is anyway, but that's what you want to see there. I think some of the questions are similar to when the Patriots had Drake May and said, okay, we got to keep him on the bench until we see a few things because our O-line had been a disaster the year before. We got to make sure that he's protected and he's put in a good position to succeed. I need to see that from the O-line. I want to know that the wide receivers are there to be obviously Brock is a safety blanket, but I need some confidence that the wide receivers are going to catch these balls, right? I want to see how it's going to all work with the wide receivers and that everybody's going to be in the right places before I put him into that situation. But once all of those boxes are checked, I need to see him in there as soon as possible because this is a year where you're sort of saying, we're not – the goal, I don't think anybody in their head is this is a Super Bowl year. We're going to go make a run or even a playoff. You're just trying to get better. And by the end of the season, you want that arrow to be pointing up and you want to be feeling optimism that we are on the right track. We have our right guy. And next year, we're going to put another piece in there. We're going to go for it. And so I think you need him to get reps in order to really feel confident at the end of the year that you've accomplished that.
Lindsay Rhodes, SumerSports.com right there. She was a guest on the show on yesterday, and she wants to check a few boxes before she puts Fernando out there. So, again, many different angles and many different approaches from many different people, and that's going to continue. That's not going to change anytime soon. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what Ari says. It doesn't matter what Vinny Bonsignore says. It doesn't matter what Clay Baker, JT. It doesn't matter what none of us say about when the right time is. As Kirk Morrison tells us all the time, Clint Kubiak says it all the time, it'll reveal itself. When they're ready for it to reveal itself, it will. When it becomes obvious, and I think that Lindsay's on the right track when it comes to not just checking the box when it comes to the person himself, Fernando Mendoza, but the other boxes around. In particular, the offensive line. Also the weapons, right? We know who Brock Bowers is. Who's everyone else going to be? Right? And so once everyone starts to feel comfortable with each other, when everyone starts to feel comfortable with the scheme, the plan, the team moving forward, then whenever that is, that could be week 1, that could be week 5, that could be week 14, right? But whenever that is when it's right to make the move for Fernando Mendoza. But that's going to be one of those conversations, Raider Nation. Buckle up, as I know you already have. That's going to be one that's going to be exhausted. As Paul Gutierrez told us a couple weeks ago, you can never talk about the quarterback too much. Guess what? You're going to hear plenty of conversation about the quarterback. But that, my friends, is how you do football right.
Doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke. Doing car care right.
So we do want to continue to hear from you at 702-365-9200. The conversation that we've had throughout the course of the show has been about just why it feels different and what, in your opinion, makes this feel different than other years when we thought that the Raiders were going in the right direction. What box, speaking of boxes being checked, what box has been checked to give you that confidence? Real quick, we'll go out to the phone lines and talk to our guy in H-Town, Nash. Nash, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys, really appreciate it. Yeah, I know I'll at least get to see Mendoza. I've already got my tickets for the preseason game here in Houston. So, and hey, if you talk to your buddy John McClain, they have open practice on the 18th, which you can quote get free tickets for, but they sold them out in 12 hours. So, you can hit up your boy and maybe do a solid for me. Give me some tickets to the scrimmage because I think that's where you see a lot. But every time you talk to you, I feel like we are brothers from a different mother, because I used to work at a grocery store too, and I still have that mentality when I go in a convenience store. I'm never going to take the soda or beverage from that first row. I'm going to go about at least 3 rows so I make sure that I get something that was cold and not something they just put in there. So,
yep.
But from that perspective, I think why it feels differently is that there's a continuity. It looked like there was a continuity last year. I mean, I think we were just kind of blind. And it's like, Kelly and Carroll, they can kind of do the same thing. And it's like they're so different, but it's like they're all on the same page. There's a consistent message, like you said, this continuity. It's like they're all speaking the same language. And what I like when you look back at the Raiders, when you've had a GM and a head coach that, again, get along, really do. I think you got to go back to McKenzie and Del Rio, or even Gruden 1.0 with Al Davis. And that's when we won. And so I really feel good about that. I really appreciate you having the New Orleans guy on too, because to me, I see that as a really critical game in Game 3. I mean, I think that'll help really give us a temperature reader on what kind of team we are, because everybody's kind of, sleeping a little bit on New Orleans, but Tyler Shuck played well in the second half of the year. They got that receiver you were talking about, Tyson. And so, to me, that's going to be a really good test against, a kind of an opponent who's kind of in a similar boat as us. And if I think they will wait. I think the guest that you just recorded talking about, making sure all the pieces are ready is spot on. And if I had to look in my crystal ball, I like the switch in Cleveland. Cleveland's going to be a bad team late in the year. It's on the road. You'll get a lot of Indiana fans out there rooting them on. It shouldn't be super cold, but again, it's a good game. And then you have the bye. So he has a week or 2 weeks to really process what happened. And then you come home for 2 games against division opponents. You'll get a lot more Raider fans in the stands if Mendoza is playing. And then after that, you've got a couple of games against the Cardinals and the Titans. And so to me, I think that would be a really good time. Give them a game away from home, and then give them a week to really kind of process what happened. And then all of a sudden after the bye, you can come in, and I just think that's what I would hope for. And that way it gives them about 6 games, and then you really got great momentum going into next year. So I appreciate it, Q. Hey, well, last question for me, Q. Do you get your haircut when you go to Hawaii?
No, I do not. Okay. It's fun. It's funny you said that, though, because I've never seen a barber in Hawaii, and I've never seen anybody in Hawaii with a clean fade. They either are bald or they have long hair.
Well, that's good, man, because I didn't want your barber to think you were cheating on him. So I just had to ask that. Man,
no
you guys
doubt.
have a great evening, man. I appreciate it.
I will do. Thanks for the call, Nash. Definitely appreciate you. Yeah, I don't get my hair cut in Hawaii, but what I do, that's funny, Moonlight Plumbing, where are you when I do? Anyway, what I do consistently, right before we leave, I go and get my hair cut. So we left on a Wednesday this time. So trust and believe, Tuesday evening, I was in the barbershop getting that final haircut and saying, you know what, this is the best it's going to be until I get back. So I always feel bad, and I always have to, bring back something from my barber or give him a little bit of a tip, because I feel like he has to work extra hard when I do get back and finally get to the barbershop, because, yeah, I look like I've been swimming around in juices and berries, and my hair has been, growing like crazy when I'm in Hawaii. So he has to put in extra work. So thanks for the call, Nash. Definitely appreciate you. We'll continue to hear from you as we close out the show. 702-365-9200. We'll do it next here on RaiderNation Radio 920.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
Just got a couple minutes left in the show. Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Diego hit us up on the text line. Q, it's Diego from Arizona. The boxes have been checked for me to go in the right direction. The franchise quarterback paired with the offensive upcoming coach. When Spytek first did the announcement of Pete, he said this team will be built with patience. If it takes 3 years to be a real playoff team for a decade, I can wait even longer. There he goes, Diego from Arizona, talking about the boxes that needed to be checked and have been checked for him. Rob in Oakland, it's always great to hear from Rob. He said, what makes me more hopeful this time around is that the organization had a reckoning, acknowledging it needed a fresh start instead of recycling old coaches and quarterbacks and taking wild swings on emotional leaders. They even agreed to trade away the face of the franchise. I'm more hopeful because I think we finally dumped the bravado and admit that we've been bad for a long time and things have to change for us to compete for a ring. Rob in Oakland. Really good text. And, that reminds me, what I believe they did is what we do quite often here, courtesy of Moonlight Plumbing. They decided to flush the old mentality like this and find a new way, according to Rob in Oakland. Really, really good text, and definitely appreciate the fine folks at Moonlight Plumbing. Raider Ramirez from SoCal said, the white got to be the same on the socks that are going together as well. Ha, that's true. Yeah, you got to have, look, you don't want to have discolored socks. That's real. But, man, sometimes I'll see that print, and I won't realize that I didn't get the right ones together, and so I got to go back and I got to locate. That's just kind of how it is at times. Let's see. We got this one from, Big Dub, I believe. He said, Money Mitch always reminds me of that uncle at family gatherings. And then Dennis said, Q, I think we need to change Money Mitch's name to Octopus Mitch because he's all over the place. Raider 9200. I'll tell you this, and you can appreciate this, Ari. Raider 9200 makes me feel like that's a DJ.
Oh, there you
go. Right? 9200, right? That's DJ lingo right there.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
there
funny.
you go. So I can appreciate that as well. Let's see. Boogie from the IE. This year's offense or offseason feels different because it didn't feel desperate. We were patient with the coaching hire. We handled the Crosby situation like adults, even when it fell through. We attacked free agency but didn't overpay every player possible. First time in a long time, feels like there's an actual plan in place and everyone is communicating the front office to the coaching staff. Then got our quarterback. Things are looking up. So there you go. Really good stuff, man. Really good text to close out the show. As you can tell by the music that's rolling, of course, we've had some really good calls and great guests from Ross Jackson and John McClain and also Sam Gordon. So, of course, we'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you wake up at the morning tailgate, get the word of the day for the summer of fun, take the trip or the cash, $3,000. And we'll be back tomorrow on RaiderNation Radio 920.